Good evening, everyone. Respected CA Dr. Devashish Mitra ji, President ICAI, CA Aniket Sunit Talati ji, Vice President ICAI, Mr. HM Hinayak Bandara ji, President SAFA, CA Nihar and Jambu Surya ji, Vice President SAFA, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda ji, Chairman Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, CA Dayanivas Sharma ji, Vice Chairman Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, and our eminent speakers, Dr. Omkar Nath ji and Vijay Saini ji, Dr. Vijay Saini ji. This is CA Sampoon Sharma, moderator for today's session. Today we have all gathered here on this virtual platform provided to us by the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board and hosted by SAFA Committee of on Information Technology. Today's topic for the meeting is IT security for professional accountants. To start off with today's session, I would like to invite CA Charanjot Singh Nanda ji, Chairman Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, to please take over for welcoming remarks. Nanda sir, please.
A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I can see here President Safa, CA Bhandara sir, the Vice Chairman, Vice President of Safa, CA Nihar and Jambu Surya sir, the two of the revered faculties, Dr. Omkar Nath and Dr. Vinay Kumar Saini ji, Sampoon Sharma, CA Sampoon Sharma, who's taking care of moderating this great assignment, and members all across the SAFA countries. I'm truly honored to be amongst you. I want to tell you that largely we all have to work in tandem to ensure that we give best of the services to our professional brothers and sisters. Ladies and gentlemen, today's topic is a well-coined topic on IT security for professional accountants. IT security is a very important area because with the inset of COVID, I want to tell you that your institute, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, was the first amongst all constituent companies of all constituent institutes of International Federation of Accountants to come out with guidance on remote audit way back on 30th March 2020 when COVID had barely started. But ladies and gentlemen, today with COVID coming in, I have seen so many people getting involved, so many people understanding and losing money. Loss by fraud has become something which is very, very prominent now. And companies are also being duped a lot. The companies are not able to work effectively, and therefore we have now concentrated on working on large issues of cybersecurity, of IT nuances. Please understand that we as professionals need to understand one thing very correctly, that movement has to be on board, particularly by professionals, to ensure that companies have an hassle-free working environment. Why do we use technology over other means? There are three basic reasons for it. Number one, technology provides an error-free environment. I am a human being. I have my wife. I have my health. I have festivals. But when it comes to a computer, when it comes to a robot, he has nothing of that sort. And therefore, he is able to work effectively. Number two, very important. I don't need to take sample. If I use technology, I go through the entire base. And there is no chance of error remotely also. And number three, and very importantly, technology gives us gives us result in no time. So the best part is that when you use technology, you have to guard yourself from various issues that may put you at a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, we all have to work in tandem to ensure that the movement is very smooth. And technology has brought us to an area where we are performing at the highest level, yet we have threats of technology issues, of hacking. And therefore, today's webinar is IT security for professional accountants. The speaker of today are two great people who have been helping us in information system audit also, Dr. Omkar Nath and Dr. Vinay SENI. And the topic to be covered today is IT security for professional accountants. It is not only for chartered accountants, but as it is a SAFA program, it takes care of all professionals across all SAFA countries. And I'm thankful to the President, Mr. Bhandara, who has been very kind to support us, to help us, and allow us to do programs. Every fortnight, we are doing a program with SAFA on technology. And this time, he has been very kind and benevolent enough to allow International Standard Board also to do programs. So next program we are contemplating is on internal audit of pharmaceutical companies, risk awareness and initiatives to mitigate that risk. So ladies and gentlemen, I will not speak much. I can see here all the speakers and Honorable President SAFA here. So I give back to Sampoon and request that we should be in larger numbers to ensure that things move in the right tandem. Thank you. Thank you, President Sir, for coming. Thanks, Omkarji and Vinayji. And thanks, Sampoon and all team members. And thanks to all participants across the SAFA countries who have come here to go home more enlightened, put at rest all the doubts that may have ever arisen on this subject. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind words. And I'm sure this session will be as enriching as you said, sir. Now, to carry on with this, I would like to invite Mr. H.M. Hinayat Bandara ji, President SAFA, to take over and share some of his knowledge light with us.
Right.
So, please.
Thank you. I hope am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible.
Right. Thank you. So good evening to all of you, and thank you for the kind introduction also. CA Nihal Jambuzaria, VP SAFA and President ICA India, rather past President of ICA India. CA S. Nanda, Chairman SAFA Committee on Information Technology and Digital Accounting and Assurance Board of ICA India. Eminent speakers, moderator, participants, and ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, let me thank the Chairman SAFA Committee on Information Technology for organizing this webinar on the subject of information technology, security for professional accountants, and inviting me to address you all. As he very correctly mentioned, this is not only for chartered accountants, but it is applicable to even the management and cost accountants as well. I also would like to appreciate the support extended by the Vice President of SAFA and President ICA India to organize this awareness session for the benefit of the accounting fraternity in the South Asian region. Ladies and gentlemen, emerging technologies and digitalization are reshaping business models and accounting practices. At the same time, digital technologies are generating mountains of data, seize new opportunities, and improve insights. In that context, information technology security is crucial because it safeguards all types of data against theft and loss and is intended to prevent the manipulation of data and systems by unauthorized third parties. As you are aware, information technology security is the application of technologies, processes, and controls to protect systems, networks, programs, devices, and data from cyber attacks. Generally, there are four main types of information technology security. That is network security, cloud security, application security, and Internet of Things security. I'm sure that the speakers and the panelists, the subject experts, will discuss in detail all these areas. I'm happy to mention that most of member bodies of SAFA have undertaken several programs on IT security to educate their members. Even International Federation of Accountants also encourages professional accountancy organizations to ensure their members have access to relevant high-quality continuing education and certification programs. Therefore, the webinar organized by the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board of the ICA India will be beneficial not only to the members of ICA India, but for the entire South Asian region. So with those remarks, let me thank once again the Chairman and Organizing Committee for inviting me, and I wish the webinar all success. Thank you. Over to you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure it will be as successful as you said. And moving on, I would like to invite CA Nihar and Jambu Sariaji, who has recently joined us, to share his thoughts and views on this topic, sir. Nihar, sir, please.
You are muted.
Nihar, sir,
Yeah, sir, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. President SAFA, Hinayak Bandaraji, Chairman of IT Committee at SAFA, Charanjot Singh Nandaji. Let me at the outset apologize for not being able to join on time. Sometimes, we are so much dependent on technology that if it fails or if it make some delay, then we also get delayed. And that was the reason why I could not join. These days, sometimes the technology makes us make more attempt to join. Very rightly mentioned by the President SAFA that at very right time, this topic has been selected by the committee, cyber security. We all are learning technology over last 2 to 3 years very aggressively and intensely. But the cyber risks to which we are exposed, we are not so fully aware and we are not so much conscious. And that is why all professional bodies in all countries, and particularly headed by IFAC, have now become very conscious and are now insisting that there should be at least some webinars on cyber security which would caution the members and which would guide them as to what steps to take to ensure that their data is fully secured, no unauthorized people access them and make misuse of the data. After all, data analytics and all these techniques are supposed to help us, but they should not act as a deterrent to all our efforts to use them gainfully. So this webinar particularly today, which is on IT security, will certainly help all the members who are attending in understanding what are the risks and how to address them. Let me thank President SAFA for permitting the committee to hold this webinar today, and also Chairman of the committee for coming forward and organizing this webinar very actively for the members of SAFA. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, President Mr. Bhandara and Vice President SAFA and Past President ICAI, Mr. Nihar Jambusaria, for gracing this occasion. Truly honored to be amongst your company and giving the best services to professionals across all SAFA countries. Thank you so much, sir. Sampoon, the line and all. Dice is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the welcoming words. And like I said, today's session will be all about IT security for professional accountants. And to deliberate, we have among us our very esteemed speakers, Dr. Omkar Nath ji and Dr. Vinay Saini ji. So the first session for today will be taken over by Dr. Omkar Nath ji. And here is a brief introduction about sir. Dr. Omkar Nath ji did his MSc in mathematics from Gorakhpur University, and he got his first PhD from AMSC University and second PhD in PU. Sir has a plethora of degrees, including PGDCM, PGDHRD, PGDMM, PGDFM, DM, and MBA in HRD. He has also authored 3 books and co-authored 2 books of IIBF, having sharpened his IT skills at IIT Kanpur and having experience of approx 10 years in banking management. Presently, Dr. Omkar Nath ji is information security strategist in the advisory and consultant role. Sir, I'd like you to please take over from here and let's initiate this session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Presentation is visible. Sampoon, my presentation is visible. Not audible. Sampurna, am I audible?
सर आवाज बहुत कम आ रही है.
Now it is okay? Yes or no?
Sir, you are audible, but it is not very clear. The volume is low.
Now it is okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is fine. We can proceed.
Now my presentation is visible?
Yes, sir. Screen visible.
Okay. Thank you very much. Respected SAFA chairman and vice chairman, and chairman Nandaji, and the Institute of Chartered Accountants for inviting me for delivering a session on IT security for professional accountants. It's a matter of great honor for me. And in another 1 hour, next 1 hour, I will try my level best to justify the topic. These are the qualifications what Sampurna was telling during the introduction. And one qualification which is not here is I am not chartered accountant. Okay. But I am a cybersecurity strategist. So from that perspective, I am taking this topic and the webinar. Now, our agenda of the session is we are going to talk about the increased cyber threats with a specific reference to the professional accountants. Not recently, in the month of April this year itself, the Home Ministry has issued a Cyber Jagrukta, and the theme of the Cyber Jagrukta is the same what is adopted by the UNO or the CISA of the US government. So a little bit we are going to talk about that. Why IT security, particularly for the professional accountants, that we are going to see, threat landscape, cybersecurity frameworks and maturity models. Some of the models we are going to see. 2 data breaches we are going to see, and the rise of cybercrime in the accounting profession, cybersecurity challenges and good practices. And in today's scenario, the quantum computing is a hot cake. So we are going to little bit talk about that post-quantum computing scenario. And finally, need of the hour. And I will ensure that 10-15 minutes is going to be spared for the question answer session. In between that, you can pass on your question to the Sampurna so that after the end of the session, Sampurna is going to read the question. This is one of the survey which has been conducted this year, May only. However, this is for the United States of America and Canada. Some 1,200 participants were there, and it was a blind survey. And the main outcome of this survey was that 75% say they would be able to survive only 3 to 7 days from a ransomware attack. Now we are talking about ransomware attack. However, ransomware attack is on the 5th position when it comes to the cyber attacks at the global level. Okay. But for accounting firms, and another profession is also there, that is for the journalist, it is becoming alarming. This is at the top. That's why a little bit more emphasis we are going to give in today's session for the ransomware. These are the main outcome of the survey, which I am referring to that. I have already given the link here. This is available in the public domain. You can download and you can see the complete survey that is available there. 30% of the small and medium businesses do not have an incident response plan. Okay. Then if this is not there, how they are going to manage? Of this 30% that have a plan, 35% tested the incident response plan over 6 months ago. Hence the testing periodicity is half yearly or yearly. That is the scenario. 34% do not test implies for susceptibility or to phishing to prevent the ransomware attack through drive-by download or some other type of cyber attacks are there. Through that, the malware is going to be downloaded on the system, and after that, the ransomware attack is going to take place. This already I have told that this was the main outcome of that most important outcome, that 75% say they would survive only 3 to 7 days from a ransomware attack. 47% say they would survive only 3 days from a ransomware attack. This is the reason why this topic has been taken and we are discussing in detail for the professional accountants. Without robust protections, accounting firms risk the loss of revenue, clients, and reputation. The objectivity and the trust is the most important element of our profession, the risk professionals. If once that goes, it becomes very difficult to continue in the profession. So that's why it becomes alarming for us to go for the required measures or the security measures for the contemporary attacks which is taking place to our clients, to our firms, or in the contemporary world. We cannot live like this, that without taking anything that will think that it is not going to, the cyber attack is not going to hit. Or sometimes the scenario is like that, when the cyber attack has not taken place on us, then we are thinking it will not hit us. But if this is the scenario, then what can happen? It may come as a surprise. So when it comes as a surprise, it will be like this. It should not happen. That's why we need to have a preparation for that. We need to have a proper risk assessment for that. With this, I am starting the session. Yeah, we are just 4 days ahead of the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is worldwide in the month of October. And this year's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, the focus was on see yourself in cyber. Together we can make it safer. So do your part. That was the main focus, that when we are using the information system, you are in the cyberspace, you are auditing the clients that time, or you are consulting the clients that time, you do your part. We have to see that how we can contribute to that. Without together, there is no the reason that we can tell that cyber attacks can be stopped or can be managed or incident is going to be responded in the right manner. That cannot happen. Moving the goalpost, that's what I have given the reference to the survey. In today's earlier, if you are going to see it, what was happening, the data center major or big enterprises, they were target of the cyber criminals or the adversaries. But in today's scenario, even the small or medium businesses, they are becoming victim of the cyber attacks. Or even the proprietary organizations, many proprietary organizations, they are becoming victim of the ransomware attack or the phishing attacks. Or it has become very common shopping or the frauds, other than the banking frauds or credit card frauds attacks. It has become very common even in India. We have seen very common, particularly in Mumbai, that electricity bill SMS comes that it is not updated, and you have to download the app, and after that you are going to be victim of that malware. That malware is going to be downloaded on your system, and they are going to have your credentials, and then fraud is going to take place. So the goalpost has changed. So that's why it's not only the victims are the bigger organizations, the smaller or individuals are also becoming the victim. Yesterday itself, the Australian CERT has released the survey, and in that survey is available on the internet. You can download and see that earlier we are thinking that financial frauds or ransomware is becoming very, very alarming, but it's not like that. Other than the banking and financial fraud is becoming alarming in Australia, in that region particularly, 41%. And out of that, 36% is the shopping frauds. Now, the last month, ENISA, the European Network Agency, has released its survey for the 2022. And in that, I was finding that phishing is at the top and ransomware is on the 6th. So in the different region, different goalposts are there, or not only the different regions, but in the different time frame of the year, we are finding that different goalposts are there. So that's why we need to be aware about that, what is happening in this contemporary world as far as the cyber space is concerned, so that we can decide what security measures can be taken. The paradigm shift has taken place. Earlier, what was happening, very few victims were there. So they were feeling shy, or they were hiding the informations that they have become victim of the attack or cyber attack. In today's scenario, there is a rise in the digital empathy. Digital empathy means many victims are there. So we are finding that on the public domain, also on the internet, lot of information is available regarding the victims, also about the modus operandi. Earlier, it was very difficult to know the modus operandi. Even in today's scenario, complete information after the investigation or the forensic investigation, that is not released due to the security reason, that is a different aspect. But still, we are getting a lot of information. So there is a rise in the digital empathy. The zero trust journey has just begun. However, there are issues with the zero trust also. In NIST publication, they have raised the issue regarding the zero trust. Some of the issues like the APIs, which is used with the zero trust technology. There is a diversity of data matters. Cyber resilience is becoming the keyword in this scenario. A little bit I will talk when I will go to the towards the end of the session. And earlier, we are addressing the issues in bits and pieces, but in today's scenario, there is need to have a focus on the integrated security. Otherwise, if you are not moving ahead with the integrated security, then some or the other loopholes are going to be left out or unpatched, or old vulnerabilities are there that is going to be exploited, and organization is going to become victim of that, or even the individual is becoming victim of that. When we are talking about the security, we are talking about the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. You all are aware about that. But why IT security for the professional accountants? That is a question that the first thing which comes to the mind why we are discussing this for the professional accountants. Particularly, they are giving assurance to the organizations, to the entities. No, there are the data breaches and attacks in the IT systems are becoming very common. Okay, unauthorized access to system information can take place through DDoS or DOS attack. There could be a disruption of services. Okay, that can happen to the individuals also. Exploitation by the outsiders, even insiders also happening. Keeping downtime to a minimum. If you are prepared for that, it can happen. Ensuring the business continuity. If anything goes wrong, there should be a contingency arrangement. Through that, the recovery of the system is going to take place so that the delivery is going to be made to the intended users. And over and above the security, the privacy is becoming a greater concern. Typically in European Union, we have got the GDPR, and GDPR is talking about the huge penalty. They have categorized all the incidents in two segments. I will discuss when I'll go to the GDPR slides. But in India also, after the Supreme Court judgment, when privacy is the fundamental right, after that, it has become a matter of discussion. However, the personal data protection bill, which was placed on the floor of the House, has been withdrawn. I will talk about that also. Okay. When we are talking about the IT security versus cyber security is a subset of that. Okay. Better we can understand here that anything which is involving security of information or information system, regardless of the bill. Cyber security deals with the security related to the information or info system in the cyberspace. Now, earlier we are thinking about the cyberspace means which is on the www or on the internet. But now the definition of cyberspace has also changed. Anything in the connected world is treated as a cyber. Even our Bluetooth earphone or the headphone, that is also going to be the part of that webcam, that will also become the part of the cyberspace. Okay. So here in this session, I am going to put more emphasis on the cybersecurity. In the next session, the more emphasis will be given on the IT security by our next faculty. I was talking about in the beginning the threat landscape. What is that threat landscape? Here we can see that somewhere it is there about the credit cards fraud, or some ransomware is going to take place, or some identity theft is going to take place, or some mail frauds are going to take place, or DOS attacks are taking place. So this threat landscape is changing its dimension over a period of time and in different regions. We are not finding any sequence for that in the different surveys which has been conducted for the different parts of the globe and in the different time horizons, but we do not have such trend that we can tell that which is going to be the running trends for taking a strategic decision for maintaining the security for the cyberspace. We can't tell that one. So that's why there is need to protect our system from the adversaries, from the cyber attacks, from the outsider exploits. There is need for that. And for that purpose, we need to understand what is the requirement of that enterprise. For that purpose, in India, the Reserve Bank of India has issued the cybersecurity framework. The NIST has also released the cybersecurity framework. The cybersecurity framework released by the Reserve Bank of India is talking about the cybersecurity incident reporting. CSOC, earlier we are talking about the Security Operations Center. Here, Cybersecurity Operations Center, they are talking about that. And the third thing they are talking about the cybersecurity and resilience requirement. Let me tell that what does it mean by the resilience? When we are talking about the resilience talks about two important elements. One, it talks about that have the immune to the attacks. So COVID has given us a lot of lesson. What does it mean by the immunity? Okay. Another thing, even though attack is going to take place, how quickly you are going to bring back business to normal. So these two preparations are different from the business continuity. Now, in today's scenario, we are not only talking about the business continuity, we are talking about the business resilience. So your system, your infrastructure, IT system should be immune to the attacks, and at all, some attack is going to take place. So you should be able to bring back business to quickly business to normal through the contingency arrangement or alternate arrangement. It should happen. The NIST cybersecurity framework is talking about the 5 elements: identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Okay. Somewhere in the cybersecurity maturity model, both are mapped to each other. Okay. They are not contradicting. Rather, they are overlapping. Just few minutes before, I was talking about the privacy when I was talking about the agenda. So these are the GDPR is the European Union requirement, and the most elaborated in today's scenario, the regulation is that GDPR. Even some of the requirements which covers across the geographies. They are being an Indian, I am here in Mumbai. If I'm a member of some of the academy in France or UK, so my data is there, so it is applicable on that. I am accessing, so that is applicable on me also. However, I am in India. So GDPR is talking about, they have segmented the incident into 2 parts. One, according to the severity. In first severity, which is little bit lower severity, they are talking about that the penalty will be 2% of the previous year global revenue or 10 million euro, and whichever is higher. No, the second, the higher severity, they are telling 4% of the preceding year global revenue or 20 million euro, whichever is higher. On the same line, our personal data protection bill has also segmented the incidents into 2 severity. The first one it's similar. It was the 15 crore and 5 crore. It was there, but now it has been withdrawn. It was withdrawn on the 3rd August 2022. This is the letter which was placed before the Lok Sabha for withdrawal of the bill. Okay, this is available on the internet. That's why I put it here. It is not a confidential matter. Okay, so they are talking about that they will include the business economy or digital economy. They will include that one, and according to that, they will make modification in the personal data protection bill. And after that, again, it will be placed before on the floor of the House for discussion purpose or for making it the act. Now, coming to the cybersecurity model, we have the cybersecurity model. When you are talking about the maturity models, in the beginning, when the implementation is going to take place, we cannot expect that it is going to work or going to give all the security measures or going to cover all the incidents. It may not happen. So over a period of time, the maturity is going to take place with the controls also. Some fine tuning is going to take place. So for that purpose, cybersecurity maturity model has been defined, and they have defined in the 5 levels. It is in line with the capability maturity model. Okay. On the basis of that, it has been defined from level 1 to level 5. They're talking about initial, repeatable, defined, managed, and optimized. Okay. And here in this side, they have taken the NIST cybersecurity framework, okay, which is mapped in the RBI framework. RBI also given one of the document that is for the capability maturity model for the cybersecurity. There it is the same levels has been defined for the understanding the maturity of the cybersecurity in the enterprises. The NIST is also given that this 5 levels, that understanding the cyber risk management and oversight, threat intelligence and collaboration, cybersecurity controls, external dependency and management, and cyber incident and management resilience. Okay. In not only in the business continuity resilience or business resilience, here also in the cybersecurity also we are talking about that resilience, so that we can appropriately give response to the incidents which is taking place with respect to the organizations. Now, coming to the data breaches, this all must be aware about that. Tata Power, in the last fortnight, it was a victim of that, or 20 days back, it was a victim of the data breach. Okay, what they told that the first statement which came from them is that the sum of its IT systems has been compromised. It was in October 2022. Okay. Modus operandi was that the data theft has taken place by the hackers or crackers. Okay, it was a ransomware. It has compromised some of the touch points. So, and some of the IT systems were also not able to provide support when this attack has taken place. But later on, what happened after 2 to 3 days? Some of the adversaries, they posted some data which was of the Tata Power on the internet. And in the last week, what information is available in the public domain is that the data has been put in the dark web for the sale. Okay. So now when they told that no data compromise has taken place, only some of the IT systems which is providing support were not working, and due to that, some of the customers, they were not having access to our systems, or some of the service providers associated with that Tata Power was not able to provide services to that. So that has been, now the scenario has been changed. So what is happening, that when we are talking about when first the attack is going to take place, disclosure is going to take place. So most of the organizations, they're in denial mode. Most of the organizations, almost all the organizations, they're in denial mode. Maybe some are the other reasons, maybe due to the reason for reputation, which is going to be questioned, or they are not aware exactly how much the impact has taken place through the attack. Okay. Another attack was the Medibank, which has taken place on the again in October 2022. That was on the 19th October. It has taken place. They came to know on 19th October. Actually, it might have taken place earlier. So in the first release, they told that 4 million customer data has been compromised. Okay, that too also, when 100 samples were released by the adversaries, those who have compromised that one. Okay, now they put that data, 100 samples were put on the internet. That has happened. And modus operandi was the ransomware, and the compromise confidentiality has taken place. Now, what has happened, it has become very, very alarming when it comes to the Medibank. Medibank is Australia's largest medical insurer. Okay, they are having a market share of 1/6% of the Australia. Okay, that much market share they are having. And if you'll see the criticality, that how it becomes this, why I'm discussing this data breach, how it becomes so critical, that they are having right to maintain the data of the kids or the students or the citizens who are of less than 18 years age till the time they don't attain the age of 25. Till that time, they are going to retain the data. Okay, that must the period is, and for others, the 7 years, the data retention is going to take place. So think of that when this type of compromises are going to take place, how much it is going to be alarming for the individuals and also for the company, because this Medibank also, first they denied that their co-brand has been attacked and there the compromise has taken place. But when these 100 samples were released, then they have accepted that their main brand has also been compromised and the confidentiality has been compromised. They handed over the rescue operation to one of the NGO who is giving support to the individuals, those who have become victim of this ransomware attack. Medical support also they are providing, because some people might have gone into trauma. So many students' data, those who are from India or from other countries, those who are studying in Australia, their data has been compromised. So that type of challenges has taken place, and the different type of supports they are providing as far as possible. The government agencies, Australian CERT is also on the job, or the government other agencies are also on the job to find it out. We are awaiting for the further details as far as this Medibank is concerned, because it is of greater concern as far as the data breach is concerned. So these two important data breaches I wanted to discuss. One important thing, earlier what was happening, either enterprises or the individuals, they were becoming victim of that. Now they were the direct victim of the adversaries, hackers, crackers, or whatever adversaries were there, they were attacking of that. Nowadays, the scenario is with the SolarWinds, we have come to know, which taken place last year, that the supply chain attacks are becoming very common. Now, how this supply chain attack is becoming very, very critical. Say, when they are going to attack any organization directly, individual organization directly, then only the data of that organizations or the customers related to that organizations are becoming victim of that. Okay, that the size of that data is not going to be that much huge. But when it comes to the supply chain, then all the customers of that OEMs or that service providers, they are going to become victim of that. SolarWinds was the example of that. In the first instance, they declared that yes, some 17,000 customers are customers, means the enterprise customers are victim of that out of that 33,000 customers. Later on, the major or major portion of the enterprise customers were victim of that. So targeting organizations through the supply chain, it is becoming a normal trend in today's scenario, or it's becoming very, very common when it comes to the high level attacks. Now coming to the remedies, what we can do, or as a consultant or as a practicing professionals, what we can do. So for that purpose, the first thing which needs to be done is that understanding the criticality. So we need to understand what is the classification of the data. Then we can provide the appropriate security. So classification of data or information is going to be very, very important. Know the information security scale. Okay. And then you understand that what is the state of the data. The state of the data, here I have given the image, which is the tamas, rajas, and sattva. Actually, the data is going to be in the three states, either of the three states. Either it will be at rest, or it will be in transit, or it will be at process. So for that purpose, I have given tamas is the rigidity at rest, rajas is the activity that is in transit, and sattva is combination of both, so at process. Okay. So why I am talking about that? What is the state of the data? Without knowing a state of the data, appropriate controls cannot be put. Sometimes data changes its states. when processing is going on. After that, it is going to be stored on the hard disk. So it goes to the rest. Over a period of time, maybe data transmission is required. So it goes to the transit. So at a different state, the different control is going to be applicable. Say, we cannot implement the encryption when it comes to the process, because encrypted data is not going to be processed. Yes, that we can implement when it is at rest or it is in transit. That time you can do that one. So understanding the state of the data is also becoming the critical along with the classification. Most of the time, the older vulnerabilities or open vulnerabilities are going to be exploited. So we need to understand with our system what are the vulnerabilities, what is their criticality. Then it should be addressed. If that is not going to happen, then that is going to be exploited. Human error is also becoming very, very critical when it comes to the information security domain. Okay, malware and this spyware, adware, different type of malicious softwares are used for attacking. Ransomware is also one of the example of that. There is a need to have the proper risk management in place, cyber risk management or IT risk management in place. For that purpose, one standard is there, ISO 31000:2018. And there is also need to know your assets. Say, when I am talking about know your assets, what does it mean? You see, what happens when it comes to the assets, there are hardware assets, there are software assets, there are middleware. All these are, we are aware about that. No, but what about those who are the bundled software, those who are the freeware, those who are the shareware? So understanding the assets is very, very critical. Those typically major attacks on the globe which has taken place in the last decade is due to the freeware or the sharewares. You all are aware that HTTPS, so SSL implementation, in 2013 November to 2014 February, the 4 months whole globe was attacked due to the problem, some vulnerability in the freeware SSL implementation software. So understanding those bundled software which is used by the enterprises, or even though it is not used by the enterprises, it is there in the system. So that is not going to be passed. When it comes to the vulnerability, it is open in the public domain, or maybe the zero-day attack is going to take place. So understanding the risk associated depending upon the classification and the state of the data, whatever the mapping is there to the business, criticality of the business process. When I'm talking about criticality, I always used to give example of that respiratory system of the human being. That is the most critical when it comes to the process. No, the different systems are there in the human body. But the respiratory system is the most critical, because the moment respiratory system is going to stop for 3 minutes, the solid brain start turning into liquid. Similarly, some of our business processes are time critical. That much time criticality is there. So whenever the risk is there, or attacks are there, or the disaster is going to hit the enterprises, we need to understand that what is the priority of that depending upon the criticality the business needs or to the services delivered to the customer. Accordingly, the priority should be set for the recovery of those business processes. Now, in today's scenario, bigger organizations, they're using the artificial intelligence and machine learning for understanding the trends of the cyber attacks, and also remedial what can be done, what type of the neural network, that type of analysis is going to be done. And some tools are also available in the market. But what happens when it comes to the artificial intelligence and machine learning? Both the systems, they takes a lot of time when it comes for the functioning. They need to understand the enterprise. They need to understand the behavior of the systems or the network which is existing in the enterprise. And according to that, then they can frame the policies and make the modification to that. Now, when it comes to the rise of the cybercrime in the accounting profession, the two important attacks are there. One is the ransomware and second one is the phishing. Okay. well-known types of ransomware we have got. We have got the crypto, we have got the scareware, we have got double extortion, and we have got the lockers. Okay. The crypto, that is related to the cryptocurrency, that happens. And here they are going to create fear. Say, if you are going to get a message that if you are not going to patch your system, it will stop functioning or something like that. Your files are going to be locked. And after that, they are demanding for the ransom money. Okay. Here directly they are going to take the crypto, they get it exchanged into the dark web. When I'm referring to the dark web, there are three webs, no? Surface web, deep web, and dark web. Dark web is the bottom layer of the internet, www, where with normal browsers you cannot go there, and there no regulation of countries' regulation is working, or the police is doing any activity to that. Freely, all such type of bad activities are going on, and data you can see since when I was explaining about the Tata Power data breach, the information is there in the public domain that some part of the data has been kept in the dark web for the same. Similarly, for the credit card, debit card, also they do that one. Double extortion is that they are going to encrypt your system. They are going to ask for the ransom money. Along with that, they also take copy of the sensitive information and selling that one, or on the basis of that, they blackmail and they demand for some money. That's why this is known as a double extortion. Now, precautions for the ransomware is you should have a backup. So say it's single backup is not going to work. You have to use a multiple version of the backup. Say as a thumb rule, we used to tell that grandparent, grandfather, father, and child. Okay. Depending upon, this is not the thumb rule, depending upon the enterprise requirement, that type of the strategy can be developed for the backup purpose. Installing the system updates, because whatever updates or patches comes, if you are not updating that one, then what happens? It is the whatever patches or updates are coming, they are going to declare that it is going to address what type of vulnerability in your system. So even if you are not updated through fingerprinting, they will come to know how exploitation is going to take place, what exploitation is going to take place, and the system is going to be compromised. So there is need to have a strategy for patching and updating the system. Anti-malware and firewall setup is required in the information system environment. There is need to segment the network according to the criticality. Okay, it's all systems in a network should not have the same criticality. So depending upon the criticality, say here we have created a DMG. So somebody is this DMG is there, LAN is there. So after that, if from outside some traffic is coming, it is going to cross this one, and then it goes to the intranet. So that type of segmentation is required. Here in this example, we have given only one DMG. You may have a multiple DMG depending upon the criticality of the IS infrastructure inside the system. Scanning the mail or taking care of the fraudulent or the spoofed mails, that is one of the area. Application whitelisting. Say what happens when a ransomware attack is going to take place. Typically, what is going to happen? Some cryptographic algorithm has to run on our machine for locking the system or encrypting the data. That application or executable file may run only when they have got the administrative rights. Without that, it is not going to run. So if you are going to whitelist only those applications which is required for the business purpose, we are going to limit the risk. Now, from data center, again, the goalpost has gone to the endpoints. That's why we are talking about the endpoint. The EDR or MDRs, this type of concept has come up when it comes to the incident management. Then there is a need to understand the role of the user, and according to that, you give access. No, the thumb rule is need to know, need to do, list privileges or segregation of duties, role-based access. Okay. there is need for periodical security testing. Earlier, we used to tell VAPT. In today's scenario, it is a VTR, vulnerability, threat, and risk assessment. Okay. And over and above, there is a need to have a cybersecurity awareness. Without that, nothing is going to happen, because there is a need for support of all individuals, all interfaces who are part of that IS infrastructure or the business processes. Then we may get success up to some extent when it comes to the protecting our IS infrastructure from the cyber attacks. Now, these are the examples I have given, but three most important precautions are there. That is one of the backup and this is the list privileges. 4 major risk is there: segregation of duties, document identities that need to know, need to do, okay, or privilege accesses, okay. And one of the most important thing, monitoring the traffic. This I have given the depiction, pictorial depiction is there, that monitoring the breath, so inhalation and exhalation that we have learned in the COVID situation. Now in the network, in the IS environment also, on the network, what is happening? Incoming traffic is there, outgoing traffic is there. So if you are going to monitor the traffic, the major portion of the attack is going to be understood by the enterprises before it is going to materialize or before it is going to hit our enterprises. There are some cybersecurity challenges. One challenge is that we are having the older technology. Say, it's not only that this operating systems or whatever. See the operating systems, how old it is. Little bit functionality is going to be added. Whether it is a Unix or whether it is a Windows operating system or whether it is a Mac. Algorithms, you see, when we got the AES in 2000, since last 10 to 12 years, the process is going for the newer algorithm, but we are not getting the newer algorithm. The last month, in the month of, last to last month, in the month of September, the 4 algorithms, they moved to the 3rd level. And when the algorithms were published, the 4 algorithms were published, one of the algorithm, which was for the signature, that is the rainbow, name was the rainbow signature algorithm, was compromised in 12 hours. So this is the scenario. Why it is happening? The problem is that those who are developing these algorithms, they are not compensated. No, these are the mathematicians, and all algorithms, whatever we are using, it is freely available, unless and until it is a proprietary algorithm. Say AES is a proprietary algorithm, but AES has been, Reasondale is a proprietary algorithm, but AES has been derived from that only. However, the AES is more stronger than, if you will see the variations of Reasondale, we will find that it is more stronger than the AES. Information sharing, I told that information sharing is, digital empathy is there, but not happening at the technical level. Exactly what exploitation has taken place, how much exploitation has taken place, what was the modus operandi, what type of controls has been compromised, the correlation of the events, those type of things are not disclosed. Okay. Privacy is becoming a concern. Okay. Post-quantum cryptography, I'm going to talk in the next slide. Okay. Supply chain, I have talked about that. This is tracing and tracking of the supply chain is becoming very, very difficult. The compliance of different standards, regulations, policy is we have gone for the GRC also, but still it is becoming a challenge. Okay, and there is a lack of knowledge and competency and skills, particularly in the cybersecurity domain. Even if you will see the UN report, there also you will find that different agencies at the global level, they are telling that there is a need for skilled resources in the cybersecurity domain. Okay. It's all a question of rosy and roti. No, when I'm talking about rosy and roti is the return on security investment or return on technology investment. So if you'll see, when I was discussing this one, that algorithms I told, or even with the operating system or the other databases also, you'll find that the very least investment is there on the information security products. No, the same is old. The mechanism for that anti-malware or spyware or the anti-adware that is there, and we are using that one. So till the time good amount of investment is not going to take place in the research and development of the security products, then however, enterprises, they are investing more, but research and development is not taking place up to that level. That is required to be done. Now we have talked about the challenges. Now coming to the best practices. Say in today's scenario, nothing is like a best practices. We are having the good practices. So we are having a good practices that you network perimeter and architecture. I have talked about that. Backups already I have talked about that. Email security, how to avoid that one. We should understand that how we can ensure that email is has coming from the right email address. It is not a phishing mail. Okay, we should learn that one, how to see the SPF, how to see the header of the email before responding to that. DMARC authentication, DMARC authentication should be there. Even we can see the from where it is coming, that we can see. Encryption, what level of encryption is taking place, how the key management is going to take place. Okay, when it comes to the encryption, two dimensions are there. One dimension is talking about that what algorithm you are going to use, a strength of the algorithm. Another is talking about that how the key management of the algorithm, the encryption is going to take place. Okay, because if key is not going to be properly managed, then the key is going to be compromised. Or if the rotation of keys are not going to take place, or change in keys, particularly the symmetric key is not going to take place, then there will be a challenge. Access controls, I told, need to know, need to do, list privileges, role-based access controls, segregation of duties, patch and update managements. There is need for audit and penetration testing. BAPT is going to be done. Even in today's scenario, the two more assessment has come up, which is known as a red teaming assessment. Red teaming, blue teaming assessment, purple teaming assessment. That assessment is one step ahead from the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing or the risk assessment, ahead of that. So it is a simulation of the scenario, real life scenario, how the cyber attacks may take place, and whether organization is, when it comes to the assessment, whether organization is in a position to withstand the attack or not. Okay. Training and awareness is the strongest tool for implementation of controls or successful implementation of controls and the policies in the enterprises. So there is need for conducting the regular training and awareness program for the employees. I was talking about the post-quantum computing scenario. Okay. In today's scenario, when we are talking about the quantum computing, a little bit I will tell about that. What is quantum computing? It is developed, in today's scenario, whatever the system you are using, it is a chip-based. No? So it is based on the chip, where 0 and 1 cannot exist simultaneously. No, so that calculation is also not taking place simultaneously. So that's why there is a delay when we are talking with respect to or relevant to the quantum computing. But quantum computing work on the basis of the qubits. No, these are the charged particle of or ionized particle of the hydrogen and chlorine. And in this, the coexistence or simultaneously 0 and 1 is going to exist. That's why there is a infinite, the flexibility is there. Infinite combinations are going to be created when it comes to the number or the simulations that is going to happen. The huge speed is there. Okay. Quantum cryptography is also different. When it comes to the quantum cryptography, there is a technique that say key sharing is not there. In today's scenario, we're talking about that out-of-band communications, key sharing should take place. But here, what happens? The exchange of key is not going to take place, the cryptographic key. The key is going to be generated at the destinations. And one special characteristic is there in the quantum cryptography. If key is going to be compromised, then it will give you the alert that this key has been compromised. So it is told that the quantum may bring unhackable cryptography. Okay. This is a wonderful thing. No, but you see the another face of the coin. No, quantum computing, it is having huge speed processing power. So in today's scenario, what is happening? There is a practice of or trend of hibernating the encrypted information. Encrypted information means what we do, how we are doing the online transactions through HTTPS, through payment gateway or credentials are going, it goes into the encrypted form. Okay, that is the thing what we are telling, that the disclosure will not take place. But what they are doing in today's scenario, whatever information which is traversing on the network or on cyberspace, they are going to copy it. So just they are hibernating that one. They are not decrypting. No. Now you can think of that, how to stop this one? How you can stop the copying of or hibernating of the cryptographic information? We cannot stop that one. There is no such technology because it has to traverse on the public network, most of the, or otherwise you confine yourself to the internet. Don't go to the internet. Cyberspace, then it may happen. So hibernating is taking place. They are waiting when the commercial use of quantum computing will come. That time they are going to decrypt it. It will be very easy for them to decrypt it. No, you know why we are changing the size of the key when it comes to the digital certificate over a period of time? Why we are doing that? Why from 1024 to 2048 to 4096? Why so? Because over a period of time, those number of combinations are going to be generated and keys are going to be disclosed. So we are increasing the size, bit size of the key. Now here, what will happen for confidential information? Most of the, as far as the credential is concerned, that much threat will not be there. But you see the privacy information is just static in nature. So in that scenario, what will happen? The privacy is going to be compromised. And in today's scenario, in this information system environment, privacy is becoming a greater concern. More and more penalty is going to be imposed by the regulators or law of the land or even the judicial systems. So it's becoming very, very critical when it comes to the post-quantum computing scenario as far as privacy is concerned. Now coming to the need of the hour is, there is a need to self-transformation. We need to have a business ethics. Anything is there on the internet freely available, download. See that some need is there to the enterprise or to you, even for individual also. Because most of such type of freewares or free things are bundled with the malware, which is going to be there into the system. Each must do their part that I told. That is the for this year's cybersecurity awareness, do your part. When we are talking about the global village, then there is a need for a global law also. Because when the moment it crosses geographical boundaries, or even we can understand that within the country, across the states, very difficult to do the police activity. No, there is a need for permission or a lot of such things are there. So in that scenario, there is a need for a global law which is going to be applicable at some level, UN level or some level. All countries should come together to address the issues related to this cyber attacks. Now, I already told there is need for a good development, investment, the real investment to the research and development. There is need for that. A lot of organizations are there. A lot of the NGOs or the autonomous organizations are there. They are also doing. GitHub is one of the example of that. MITRE is another example of that. They are working on that. NIST is another example of that. They are doing a lot of such type of activities, but it should not be limited to the few organizations. For commercial purpose, the organizations should come forward and do that type of business. There is a need for awareness. I told that the new normal is business resilience, and it is not going to work only with the business continuity. There is need to develop the resilience in our information system. That is going to help us to understand that how we can address the issues related to the cyberspace. This is one of the additional slide I have put it here because we are having ergonomic problems when it comes to the using the information system. Because we sit for a longer period in a same posture, so that is going to put impact on our health. So this is the scientific measurement which is given, that how we should sit, how we should work, know what type of chair should be there. Earlier, we are having a computer table where there was a drawer in which we are putting the keyboard. No, so that was little bit scientific. In today's scenario, we have got laptop anywhere. We are going to sit and we are going to work on that, or even we are working on mobile. So either this way or this way or this way. So that is going to put problem on our health. Lastly, I wanted to tell that there are two rules. Okay, rule one is telling don't trust on anyone. Okay. If you are able to understand the meaning of that, don't trust on anyone. Anyone means you are also included into that. Okay. You are also included into that. You are part of that. Okay. Rule number 2 is telling that if you are having any doubt, refer to rule number 1. So always it is the rule number 1. Don't trust on anyone. With this, I am holding here for the question answer session. Better let us have an interaction with your issues. Okay. Sampurn open for the question answer.
Yes, sir. We still have some time left, and I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
So the first question is, are there any separate cyber audit programs or checklist of special audits for cybersecurity system companies in the US or in any other parts of the world? Are there any special guidelines prescribed for cybersecurity audits in India? If not, what are all the suggestions to be given to the government of India by our professional ICAI or large and renowned firms specializing in the same?
Say, we are used to of working with a checklist, but in today's scenario, we are in the dynamic world. No paradigm shift is there. I have given example in one of the slides. So if you are going to work with a checklist, it will become a static. But for developing our own checklist specific to the enterprise, we have the guidelines given by the regulators. Okay, the cybersecurity framework is given by the NIST, which is open, which is not proprietary. Anyone can use that one. The cybersecurity framework is given by the Reserve Bank of India, is also there. Okay, so they are giving in detail. Apart from that, they have also given the cybersecurity maturity model, which I have referred in my session. On the basis of this, not only we can develop our checklist specific to the enterprise which is assigned to us, but also over a period of time, if the assignment goes or persists for a longer period, say 1 year, 2 years, we can develop some type of cyber capability maturity model for the enterprise, which is specific to the enterprise, and that is going to help the enterprise. Otherwise, if we will go through the generic checklist, it will be generic assurance. Every enterprises, they are having a different criticality. They have a different concerns. They are having a different type of focus, and also the attacks from the adversaries.
Okay, sir. I hope that answers the question. Moving on, the next question is, please elaborate in more detail regarding the terms used in your slides. Number 1, zero trust journey, and number 2, cyber resilience.
Okay. Cyber resilience I have explained, but once again I will explain that one. But first, let me explain the zero trust. What is the meaning of the zero trust? Say, zero trust is telling, zero trust is an architecture that is known as a ZTR, zero trust architecture. Zero trust is telling that every time anyone is going to access the system, you question that one. Okay. So ask for the credentials or ask for the confirmation that who you are. For that purpose, you have to develop in your IT environment the zero trust architecture, and you have to define the architecture in such a way that it is going to tell the criticality. On the basis of that, the credentials are going to be questioned. just I have logged into this webinar. I may log out after my session, and again I may join for the next faculty's Dr. Saini's session. So when again I am going to join, again it is going to question if I am the part of that zero trust architecture. It is going to do that. But zero trust architecture, one of the challenge which has been pointed out by the NIST, and in 2019 also I have written an article on that. The greater concern is the APIs, which is used in the zero trust. Is the APIs means I am talking about the application programming interface, because it is a third-party application, so it needs some type of middleware to establish interface to our IT environment. So who will take responsibility of those APIs? Because most of the middlewares and APIs are the freewares or given by the third parties. Over a period of time, they don't take responsibility of that because they are not being paid. The same scenario is there with the freeware and shareware. I have given example of the credit card or HTTPS SSL attack which has taken place in 2013 and 14. The typically the name of that attack was the Heartbleed. Heartbleed. You can do the Google and you can see that how much attack 2/3 of the world was having a problem with that. Typically for that compromise of the private key which has taken place. So that is the zero trust architecture, but it has just begin the journey, means you develop that type of architecture, then you can implement that. So it is difficult for the smaller organizations. However, some makeshift arrangement is there by the vendors, but it will take time. So we have just started the journey. Another concept has also come up with the passwordless the authentication, or some other type of authentications which are going to take place in 2-factor, 3-factor, or digital certificate authentications, or we are going to restrict up to that machine. The earlier we used to talk about that 3-factor authentication, but we have moved up to the 5-factor authentication. No, one the who you are, what you have, that what you know, and the 4th factor is that where you are, and 5th factor is talking about what is the context, in what context you are asking these questions or these credentials. Okay, we have gone up to that level. The second question which was asked about the cyber resilience. Okay, so say take the scenario, practical scenario, that you are having a IS environment, you are having a anti-malware, and if you will do the review, if you will do the assessment, you will find that even though the regular patching or updates of signature of anti-malware is going to, or antivirus is going to take place, but still cyber attacks are taking place. So what does it mean? That whatever the system or the controls you have implemented, it is not going to meet the objectives, the cyber objective of the enterprises. So what should happen? That it should be immune to the attack. No, when attack is going to take place, it should defend that one. No, in COVID situation, we have seen that if our immunity level is good, then we are not becoming victim of the COVID infection, okay, or the COVID disease. So our controls in the IS environment should be in place and should be updated so that they should immune to the cyber attack. But we can't have such type of system which is going to defend all the attacks. Can't have. So some or the other point of time, even though you are having a good systems or good controls, attack may take place. So for that purpose, in that situation, you should have some contingency arrangement, a standby arrangement or alternative arrangement. Through that, you can bring back business to normal. So the second aspect is talking about that, reduce the impact. Okay, so resilience, whether it is a business resilience or cyber resilience, it is talking about the two elements. One is talking about the immunity, another is talking about reduction of the impact if at all some attack is going to take place on the IS infrastructure of the enterprise. Yes, Ankur.
Okay, sir. So that was all the questions.
No more questions?
No, sir, not.
I thought more questions will be there. That's why I stopped 15-16 minutes earlier. Okay, no problem. Dr. Saini will take care of the time.
Yes, sir. So thank you, Dr. Omkar Nath ji. It was quite a wonderful session, and we spoke about the paradigm shift, why IT security, the CIA triad, and I suppose you have covered the phase one, that is the information security. The second phase will be covered by Dr. Vinay Kumar Seniji. We spoke about the 5 elements of cybersecurity framework and the 10 key GDPR requirements in data privacy, 5 levels of cybersecurity maturity model, supply chain attack, cybersecurity challenges, and post-quantum computing scenarios. So I hope that summarizes your session, sir, and
Yes.
it was very well to have you. So starting with the next phase of this session, I would like to invite Dr. Vinay Kumar Saini ji. Vinay sir.
Yes, Sampoon, good evening.
Brief introduction about Vinay sir is Dr. Vinay Kumar Saini has more than 18 years of experience in software development, information security, training, research, and consultancy. He holds BTech in computer science and engineering and MTech in information technology and PhD in computer science and engineering, blockchain. He has qualified CISA exam and is Wipro and Infosys certified faculty. He has published many research papers in journals and proceedings of international and national conferences. He has delivered many guest lectures on various information technology, risk management, IT security, and IS auditing related concepts in leading institutions like CA Sri Lanka, IEI, ICAI, RDIAS, TIPS, and many more across India and abroad. So we are very happy to have you, and you are more than welcome to please continue the session.
Thank you, Sampoon. Thank you very much. And before I start, a very good evening to everyone. Respect to all the senior leaders from SAFA and ICAI, and our very respectable speaker, Dr. Omkarnath sir. I've been working with alongside him from quite a long time now. And I think these kind of initiatives, these kind of events are the need of the hour. And I must appreciate that this event has been proposed, and we all are meeting together virtually to discuss things about cybersecurity, IT security, and related concepts. I think you pick anything around the world. Right now, technology cannot be ignored, right? And we are living in a digital connected world, right? And it's getting more and more digitized by the time. And we are interacting, our data, our information, sensitive data, business data, and whatnot is being roaming around here and there based on our business processes, applications, and whatnot. So when data is traveling, it is in public domain, maybe you are trying various security practices. Still, it is not safe, right? So we need to understand cybersecurity, data security, IT security. There can be many terms, right? But eventually, the fact is there is a huge risk, right? And there's a potential that hackers or bad people or practitioners who are doing, they are trying to gain access to sensitive data may create disasters or may disrupt many business organizations, which may lead to serious financial loss to various stakeholders. So I think we should be vigilant. We should have some effective practices, some, as Dr. Nath said, better practices, not the best practices, because risk is not a static element, right? You say, okay, I'm using a best practice. But let me tell you one thing, risk is not a static element. It keeps on changing. The hackers and the people who are having bad intentions will keep on coming with different kind of strategies by observing systems and their growth. So yes, we should try to make our systems better, and we should try to incorporate standard operations with proper tested methodologies so that our systems are safe, right? With this, I'll take this discussion further from where Dr. Omkarnath has left. And I must appreciate that we already have got a lot of idea and awareness about why IT security or cyber security, for that matter, is important, why we need it, right? He discussed some of the case studies. He discussed some incidents with some banks and other incidents where there has been breaches and it has led to serious losses to stakeholders and damage to the organization like banks and other connected parties. Now, he mentioned that there have been a lot of effort, like there have been standards, there have been practices to secure systems. But I think we need to now take this discussion to more specific thing, like, okay, I got the clarity, I got the idea. Now, how I can do it in my organization, my place, my system, and what I can do so that I can really feel safe and I can protect my system, right? So it's more about getting more specialized, understanding all the basic ideas from Dr. Omkarnath sir's slides and discussion. Now we'll move on to a bit of practical, or you can say implementation part, like, okay, how now I can take care of all these things and can make sure my system is safe. Okay, so welcome you all. I'll take you to my slide. Let me just share my slide first and I'll start discussing things further accordingly. So here comes, I hope the slide is visible.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So let's move on. The agenda for my discussion would be just a step ahead, or perhaps in continuation with Dr. Omkarnath's discussions. So he gave us basic understanding of why security is important and why we should think about it, what is happening, why it is critical, and other things. Now, my agenda would be to just continue that discussion, and I'll talk about some important aspects which are critical if you want to protect your system, your organization's accounting system or information system, right? So it's more of how you should take the knowledge further so that you can implement, you can make it operational. Whatever you have learned, you're trying to implement so that you achieve your objectives. All right. So this is the agenda. I'll talk about topics like vulnerabilities and threats, what are they and why they are critical. Cyber attacks, just a bit of extension to what has been covered in the previous session. Now, the next thing is security management, how to do security and how to manage it over a period of time, because it's not just one-time activity here, and it's not a static thing. It keeps on changing. So we need to have a continue and a regular process, and we need to manage that process. So we will talk about that. Then I'll quickly talk about some security controls. And the most important thing is the intention. So we need to have the right intention, that is developing a security mindset, right? So we cannot be complacent that, okay, I have a security management process, I implemented the controls, now my job is done. No. It has to be a continuous, aware and proactive approach. So only then you can say that you are relatively safe, right? And then we'll quickly summarize things on whatever has been discussed, and we'll talk about some essential practices to ensure cybersecurity for accounting firms, right? A quick guideline kind of a thing, or a checklist. Okay, if I am doing these things, I'm relatively safe. Then I'll talk about vulnerability, threat, and risk assessment aspect, which is very critical. And it will give you a lot of inputs on how you can safeguard or how you can protect your system. And then I'll talk about security by design, right? So security should never be considered as a reactive activity. Okay, for example, let's say I'm designing I want to create an accounting system. Okay, you created the whole accounting system, now it is operational. Now you are saying, after building the system, let's secure the system. That's a very wrong approach, right? You should start with security, right? So when you are thinking and visualizing that, okay, I want to have an accounting system, so you should start thinking about security right from the start. So your accounting system should be designed in a manner that security controls, security aspects, security compliances are part of the design itself, right? So that it is relatively safe and it doesn't cost you much when you are thinking of security and protection of that system, right? So your system would be already robust. And even then, if you are having some incidents and some kind of attacks, so you can have proper monitoring and you can do incident management around that. So security by design is something very critical that you as a person handling system or designing system must take care of. Security cannot be thought of as a reactive thing. Okay, something wrong will happen, only then I will think about security. That's a bad approach. Then finally, we'll talk about use of AI and ML in cybersecurity, because the complexity of the system, size of the system is increasing like anything. So we just cannot really handle the security manually all the time. So we need to have some smart solution, automated solutions, which can really make security more effective. Okay. And finally, we'll conclude with one thing. Well, you cannot say we can secure our system 100%, right? Let's say one day, though you have a robust system, one day you face an attack, right? And there has been damage. How to do recovery? How to really minimize the impact of that damage? The only alternative is cyber insurance, right? So the final resolution is cyber insurance. And we should consider that factor as well, right? Because you never know when you have a smart person, smart hacker who has done a lot of research about your system and everything, and he has been able to find a gap or a flaw in your system. So that would be the day your system is hacked. So you should always be ready for that kind of scenario. So cyber insurance can be a good alternative, right? So this is the agenda. I hope you have got a quick idea about what we are going to talk about. So let's start rolling, okay? So let's start with some basic understanding of what we are doing and why we should do it. There are only two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be, okay? So this is the statement by Robert Mueller, FBI Director, 2012. Okay, so that's a bold statement. And that really tells us clearly that we should be worried, we should be concerned about cybersecurity, and we should be up to handle that in a proper manner by using good practices, better practices, and of course, regular review and assessment is important. Now, another concept is there. Okay, somebody mentioned one single vulnerability is all an attacker needs. Okay, so we need to understand what we are doing, right? Cybersecurity, how critical it is, and what kind of focus is required if we are thinking about cybersecurity. So only one vulnerability, right? If one vulnerability is there, that's enough for the hacker, right? So this is a statement by Windows Cinder, Chief Security Officer, Fastly. Okay, great. So I hope now you all are set for the session. I hope now you have got the clarity why we should talk about this, right? No system is safe. One vulnerability is enough to break it. Okay, now let's talk about these terms, what these terms are and how they are related and why we should be worried about it. Okay. So relationship between threat, vulnerabilities, and risk. So you all know threat is basically a kind of external attempt. It could be an internal attempt also. Internal attempt means somebody within the organization is trying to attack the system, okay? Or maybe somebody else outside the organization is trying to attack the system. A threat is basically an incident, an attempt to harm your system, to attack your system, right? The purpose, the intention could be anything. It could be stealing data or damaging your ongoing operation, or it could be a kind of a ransomware attack, and they are looking for some financial benefit by attacking your system. So there can be many motives why a threat is there, okay? Now, the other aspect is vulnerability. Well, there is a person, he has certain motive to attack your system. But if there is no vulnerability in your system, it would be a tough task for that person to really successfully attack your system. If your system doesn't have any vulnerability, which is very hard to say, right? Because when you just cannot think of vulnerabilities when you're designing a system, right? Many vulnerabilities comes into picture when you are running and executing and operating the system, right? And many times some human factor is also involved. So you can always have a vulnerability, a weakness in the system, right? Now, the point is, a hacker, a malicious user wants to attack, means he's a threat. He wants to attack a system. But if there is no vulnerability or less vulnerabilities, or perhaps vulnerabilities which he's not able to discover, it would be very hard to attack the system, right? In fact, the reality is, if you cannot figure out a vulnerability, you can't get access to the system. You cannot attack the system. So vulnerability is basically a weakness, an opportunity where you can execute your attack, right? So it's basically a weakness where hackers try to exploit that weakness to gain the access to your system. Now, let's say we have malicious users, hackers, attackers. Then there are some vulnerabilities also. So hacker will get that vulnerability and he will exploit that vulnerability and will attack your system. Now, that would be an incident that will damage your system. You will lose your operations, maybe financial loss would be there, reputation loss would be there. Now, this is a big risk for you, right? So when there is a combination of vulnerability and threat, it is basically a big risk for you. And it may lead to potential loss or damage of your software application, loss of data, or financial loss, maybe like losing trust of the customers, like when you're talking about bank and related breaches, or if your accounting application get hacked, it may lead to tampering of data, or maybe data loss, or maybe misuse of your accounting data. So this is a serious threat and serious risk for the organization. So it means if we are planning to secure our system, I think these three terms should be very clearly understood by all the practitioners, and these should be taken into consideration when we are planning to secure our system, right? So this was the objective of this slide, to have a clear understanding what threat is, what vulnerability is, and why they can pose a risk, okay? Now, in the previous session, a lot was discussed about various different kind of cyber attacks. I'll quickly give you just a quick overview of this. Like I mentioned that when threat and vulnerability meets, it leads to risk. Now, what kind of risk? These kind of attacks can be there, like malware attack. Malware attack means a virus program is there, which has entered your system, and there are many means by which this can happen. Now, this malware will get into your system and will start doing wrong things, maybe stealing data, deleting data, or maybe encrypting data like ransomware, okay? So all these things can happen if there is a malware attack in your system. Now, how it happens basically? Well, things are very simple to understand. A hacker wants to implant a program, a software program in your system. Now, how it can be done? It can be done physically. Like if he gets access to your system physically, he can send the data through maybe pen drive, right? Or logically means like he's interacting with you through a chat, maybe becoming your social media friend or things like that, social engineering. And then he's interacting with you and he has gained trust of you by various discussions and meetings that you had online or offline. Now, one day he's saying that I've got a very interesting software and it will really help you in doing your business. And he's sharing that software with you. But there is a hidden software, a virus in that, or a malware in that, which will expose your system. So there can be various ways in which malware can enter your system. It can enter through internet also, like phishing attack. Somebody is sending you emails regarding various promotional offers or other things and all, and you are not aware of exactly the vulnerability or the kind of threat which is there. And you are clicking those links and you are following their communication, like accept this thing to implement this or install this software. So you may get trapped and that program will enter in your system and may expose your system. And hackers and attackers may have remote control of your system. Then there can be password attack, like you have some, like password is a control, right? You have files, you have put password on that. Let's say somehow the hacker has got access to that file. You feel that my file is safe because the password is there. But no, that person can attack your file by different softwares, cracking softwares, right? Password cracking softwares. And he may be able to break the password, because there are various sophisticated tools, like you have what he calls brute force attack, then you have dictionary attack. You will try various possible combinations to match the password, and one will match. Then there can be other attacks like man in middle, means he's trying to intercept the communication. You and your partner or coordinator or say colleague is interacting for a sensitive operation in your organization, and you are interacting on a, say, maybe a platform like Zoom or any other, or maybe some other means of communication like chatting, Meet, Google Meet, or many other. And if that person intercepts he gets in between, either reading the data through the network or monitoring your machine, remotely getting access to your machine and just recording what all you are doing, right? Capturing all that data right from your machine or from the network through which data is traveling. So this is something called man in the middle. He may come in between without letting you know and can read and listen to what all sensitive things you are talking about. Right. Then similarly, there are many more attacks like SQL injection attack. It is basically an application level attack where the hacker tries to attack on your application, your website, and through small weakness of database, query language like SQL language, he may try to gain access to your database, right? SQL injection attack is basically where you are writing a small SQL script which get passed without advanced validation check and all. It totally depends if your system has that weakness. If your system doesn't have that weakness, SQL injection attack will not work. So that's why vulnerability and vulnerability assessment is important, so that you have already assessed your system, evaluated your system, and you're trying to put controls and checks on how attacks can happen, and our system should be able to respond to that attacks, right? So if you want to protect your system, you must have understanding of how attack happens. Only then you can put certain controls. Denial of service attack, for example, let's say a hacker is trying to gain access to your system, but he's not able to gain access. But he has got an assignment that you have to damage this organization by hook or crook, directly or indirectly. I want to, let's say somebody who has given him the contract or hired him for attacking a particular website or a system. He's saying, do whatever you want to do. I just want that organization to be damaged, right? I want their system down, or maybe steal their data, whatever you can do. So denial of service is a kind of an attack where hacker will damage your system in a way that your system will stop operating. It will not respond to any service request, or people who are trying to use it legitimately for your operations, they will not get access to it, right? It's like, okay, I can give you a simple example, real world example where you can understand it. Let's say you want to protest and you don't want anything to happen, right? You have protest, you are blocking the roadways and you're blocking the railways. It's like denial of service. You are stopping and disrupting the service so that the concerned parties start listening to you, or maybe start feeling the loss or damage. So the objective behind denial of service attack is you don't want that organization to operate. You don't want their operations to keep on moving, right? Then insider threat, which is a serious threat, like your internal people, employees. Doesn't matter what the motive is, like they may be dissatisfied people, or they may have some grudges, or they are looking for revenge kind of a thing, or they may have been bribed by somebody outside party and they want to attack, and they are serious threat because you have so many things, like you are putting so many controls to protect the system from outside attacks. But what about inside attack? And for inside attack, you need to be a lot more smarter, a lot more careful, that you start monitoring everything that is happening in the organization. And the moment you feel there is something wrong, you are taking serious and appropriate steps to counter that particular threat. And then watering hole attack. Watering hole attack is an indirect approach. Let's say you are following all practices. You have protected your system from malware attack, phishing attack, password attack, MIM attack, SQL injection attack, DOS attack, insider threat. You have protected your system like anything. Nobody can attack you. But then there can be an alternative approach. What? Let's say you are an accounting firm and you know that you have to work with various other partners, third parties, and other regulators and all. So you regularly communicate with those people. Okay. And you know that you will be sharing sensitive details there. You may not be sharing or exposing your sensitive details in your systems and other connectivities. Why? Because you have already safeguarded your system. But then there are certain other parties where you share your information for doing some transaction, like let's say a regulatory body website is there, or a third party vendor supplier is there whom you are doing business, right? Now, when you are doing transaction with them, hacker knows that because he has done a lot of homework, he has tried 10, 15 times to attack your system, but he doesn't get success. Now what he'll do is He will start monitoring how you do operations. Okay, when you are in your organization, you are safe, you have all controls and everything. But then one day you have to move out of your organization and you have to do some transaction operations with a third party player, right? Now, here's an opportunity. Now, when you are doing transaction and operation with that third party, so instead of hacking and attacking your system, the hacker will attack and hack the third party system. He may not, or that system may not be that secure as you have done with your system. So he will attack and hack their system. And now when you will be doing transaction and sharing your sensitive information on their vendor's system, he will capture those details from there. Now, once he gets the details, he is ready to damage you further. So this is what watering hole attack means. So there can be various other sophisticated practices. The idea is, first of all, you should know the threat landscape, as mentioned by Dr. Onkar Nath sir also, with so many examples. So this is very important, critical step before you start protecting your system. Now, once you have understood this vulnerability, threat, and risk part, and various different kind of attacks that can happen, it's really time to start working. Okay, now you understand security is important. Now you understand there are risks, and then these risks are because of vulnerabilities and threats. So let's have a comprehensive process which will guide us how we can manage risk. Okay, now what is required? First of all, we need to identify what all risk areas are there, right? Before that, we need to understand from where risk is coming. Now, we can understand from where risk is coming because we have understood vulnerabilities and threats. If we can identify all the vulnerabilities which are there or which may be there in a system, now how we can identify vulnerabilities? Well, let me tell you one thing. If we talk about our system, right, vulnerability is an element which is directly related to your system. It's system's weakness. Now, we want to see what are the weaknesses in the system. For that, we need to understand the system. We need to have a macro and micro view of our system, how our system works, what is the process, what are the components, what are the activities that are happening. Like it's a IT-based system. Okay, fair enough. It's an information system. It has hardware. It has software. Software, again, two types, operating system and application, like your accounting application. Then there is a database where you are storing all the data. Then you have a network by which all your machines are connected. Then you have some certain kind of security practices, security controls, firewalls, antivirus you have installed in your system. Then there are employees, people who are working on the systems, right? And you have defined certain set guidelines, some processes that who will communicate with whom, who will report to whom. So all these are various different aspects about your system. So if you want to identify vulnerabilities, it means you have to understand all these components of your system and pick one component at a time and start observing where can be the weakness, right? Like hardware. Hardware can be exposed to any threat if it is not safeguarded, either physically or logically. There should be no way that any unintended person should be able to access that hardware physically, right? Same way, logically he's connecting means through some internet connection network, he's entering into the machine's hardware, right? So that's how logically somebody can access infrastructure component of your system. So it means we have to list out all the components, hardware, software, databases, networks, security practices, people. They may also lead to vulnerability, right? And then the process is how they are designed, right? Where there's a gap in communication in the process, there can be a vulnerability. So these are some of the components. Study these, you'll be able to identify the vulnerabilities. Okay, there is a possibility of vulnerability here. If this thing is not monitored and controlled and checked and validated, it's a serious vulnerability, right? So point is, if we want to do risk management, first of all, we need to identify risk. How we can identify risk? We can identify risk based on vulnerabilities. What are the vulnerabilities in our system? So list out the vulnerabilities, right? In terms of hardware, in terms of software, in terms of your network, like there can be vulnerabilities like you have weak authentication system, weak password, or maybe as sir mentioned, you can have multiple factor authentication, like Traditionally, we talk about 1 factor, 2 factor, 3 factor. Now you can have 4 factor, 5 factor, as Sir mentioned in his discussion. So the point is, we need to identify where there is a possibility of exploitation, right? If you're using 1 factor authentication, it means it's not good enough. Why? Because let's say you are only using password. If somebody is able to get access to your password, then what is the second line of defense? Okay, that means you understand that, okay, first of all, password should not be shared, or it should not be without password. That's a vulnerability. If let's say you have a password, it should not be weak password. If you have a weak password, that is also a vulnerability. Let's say if you have a strong password, even then there can be vulnerability. If let's say somebody is monitoring you when you're typing the password, let's say what we call that shoulder surfing, right? One day you are sitting and your friends are there around you and you had to do some urgent transaction. You trust those people, but that doesn't mean that you should be complacent or you should be casual. But then it was urgent. You didn't realize that it could lead to vulnerability, and you are entering the password. Somebody observe you, sees you. That is called shoulder surfing. And then the password is leaked. Now, you know that you only have 1 factor authentication. So somebody will try your password and will gain access to your system. So it means 1 factor authentication is also a vulnerability. It should be 2 factor, 3 factor. If it is more sensitive asset or information or operation, it should be 4 or 5, depending upon the criticality and value of that particular asset or activity. So accordingly, you should have appropriate practice to protect that system. Now, the idea was we need to identify vulnerabilities. So you can identify the vulnerabilities by observing all the component, hardware, software, and everything. Once you have listed all the vulnerabilities, so you get the clarity that these are the possible risks which may happen. Now, based on those risks, you need to assess those risks. How critical those risks are. We have just identified the risk, but you haven't evaluated how critical they are. So if you cannot assess the criticality, I don't think you can have a effective security practice for those risks. So what we need is risk assessment. So we need to evaluate all the risks. Now, how we evaluate risks? I'll discuss in detail with an example, right? Where we'll measure that this risk has more weightage, this risk has less weightage, and what are the factors, how we calculate that weightage. I'll give you detailed methodology and how it happens in the subsequent slides, right? But for the moment, just understand. First thing is identify risk. Second thing is evaluate and measure the risk and their impact, right? And according to their overall magnitude, make a ranking. Which one is more critical? Which one is little less critical? And which one is the least critical? So you can have a representation kind of heat map where you can highlight this dark red is the highest critical risk, and we should have something strong, robust, and effective to mitigate this risk. And there could be some green risks with green shades or colors, like they're not that critical, but okay, we must have some kind of practice, or maybe we can ignore also, or maybe avoid also, or maybe ignore or accept that, okay, these are not that impactful risks. So let's not worry about them. Because when, when you are talking about risk, there are 4 things that you can do for any risk. Either you can avoid that risk, either you can accept that risk, either you can mitigate, or you can say you can put a control for that risk, or you can share that risk. Okay, so it totally depends on the criticality of the risk, that which strategy should be taken for that risk. And you all know that business runs with money. And when we are talking about securing our business, that also need money. So we just cannot invest unlimited amount of money for security, right? So we need to be more peculiar, more focused, more subjective and objective in evaluating how much investment is actually required to provide reasonable and acceptable security practices. So that's why we are doing it. Like, identify the risk, then evaluate which risk need more focus. There we will invest, right? So once you have done this activity, you can make a risk management plan. Okay, these are the risks. These are the risks where we'll have advanced controls, some medium controls, very basic controls, and this makes our plan of addressing the risk. Here we'll put firewall, here we'll put antivirus, and here we will have basic authentication checks and everything, right? Here we'll keep the data in a public domain, like website. Some data has to be shared by to the public, but public can only read it. They cannot change it, and they cannot tamper that, and they cannot really disrupt the website also. So you will define these controls, and this will be your risk management plan. Now, this is the risk management plan. Now you have to implement it, and you have to finally monitor how effective it is, right? When it is in operation. And over a period of time, you will study this and you will measure whether your controls are effective or not. And one day you will see that there is a new incident. You have put controls for a period of time, nothing happened, but then one day there was an incident, attack. So it means there is new risk which has emerged. So you have to repeat this whole cycle again. And you have to update whatever risk management plan you have built in the last iteration. Okay, so this is how risk management happens. It's a ongoing process. You cannot say that it's a one-time process. You have to keep on doing it on a regular basis. And there has been standards like mentioned by Dr. Nath sir, that the NIST standards are there, ISO standards are there, where they guide you about some certain practices and the manner how you can do security risk management in your organization. But these are the basic steps which will be there in almost all the practices. Now let's move on. I told you that once you evaluate the risk, after that you have to put controls. You have to define which controls should be put for what kind of security on what kind of asset, right? Let's say you have sensitive data in your database, right? So nobody should be able to get access to that data directly. Only authorized person should be able to access through the application, not directly in the database. So now you got a clarity, what is your objective of the security? So accordingly, you will select the control. That you need control on databases, then you need advanced security, perhaps control what? You will not give access to direct database to anybody. So you have to block all the access which are there to the direct access on the database. Only the access to the database should happen from the front end application. And access to application is again controlled and determined by a login system mechanism, where your credentials would be tested. They would be verified using authentication mechanisms. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 factor, depending upon the criticality of the risk. And once a user follow or cover, passes those security checks, only then he can access the data, and that also in a controlled manner. You can never ever access the database directly. So that kind of mindset is required, clarity is required. Once these kind of clarities are there, then you can put appropriate controls. Means first control in this scenario is that there should be no direct access to the database. Okay. So in that direction, there can be various different kind of controls depending upon your requirement. One aspect is physical security. We have to physically secure our infrastructure, machines, applications, where they are hosted. Like you can talk about data center, if you are having a cloud infrastructure, or if you have a local, cloud or private cloud, or maybe you are maintaining your own data center infrastructure, physical security is very important, right? Even if you have your application hosted on cloud, on a cloud platform, even then the endpoint devices that you are using, the network routers you are using, they need physical security, right? Because if exploiters get physical access to those things, they will get access to your system, application, and data. So physical security is one part, and second part is the logical security. So what controls can be there for physical security? I think these are some basic things. Most of the things would be aware to you, like manual door or cipher key locks. Means some locks are there which has certain keys, cipher or code. Then you must have identification checks, like through photo IDs or some kind of smart card or login IDs, badges. You must have security guards or dogs, and whenever somebody is entering, you can have entry logs. So these are all physical security controls by which you can have physical security in your organization or your information system, right? Then you can have controlling the reception area and logging in visitors. You must have proper focus that who is visiting and what he is doing, right? He should not do anything objectionable. And whenever somebody is coming, you should record when that person entered, who was he, and what he did. All these things should be recorded, right? Like a log or a action event should be written in that log. Then deadman doors. Deadman doors means at the entry point, the entry point or the entry should be designed in a manner that only one person at a time should be able to enter. The reason is that you should be able to apply your authentication checks and verification checks effectively. If there are many people entering at the same time, it may create chaos and it may lead to serious vulnerabilities or something get missed in verification. So deadman door is entry mechanism where only one person can enter at a time or one car can enter at a time, right? So that is one good strategy, physical security. And then CCTV camera surveillance so that you can keep on monitoring and recording whatever is happening so that there is always an evidence available if something wrong happens. So you can go and check the CCTV camera footage. Then perimeter intrusion detector. So let's say if it is a huge campus area, right? You have a strong security at the entry gate and all, but then there are other areas like in the back of your campus from where intrusion can happen. So you can have some kind of sensor-based systems or wiring where if somebody comes through that or cuts that wire to get an entry, physical entry, it may lead to some kind of indication or a trigger in your system that notifies that there is a attempt of getting into your campus or your area facility. So that kind of controls can be there. Then your endpoint devices, machines and computers, you may have controls around that. Like you can have cable locks. You can put locks on the cable so that nobody can, cut and try to read the data from that. And then wherever there are ports in your hardware machines, like computer ports are there, where you can put pen drive and can access the data or can send data in the system. So you can block or put locks on that ports, right? That nobody should be able to access that port or connect any other device or a malicious device to your system. Same way goes with your routers, network switches, which are very sensitive devices in your information system. So you should put physical locks on that so that nobody can access it without proper authentication, right? And verification check. Only authorized people should be able to get physical access. Okay. Then pre-planned appointments. You will never let anybody enter your organization if a proper appointment notification or requirement is listed in the today's to-do list, right? Let's say there's a data center of your organization. It's a very sensitive place. Now, if anybody is coming to that data center, there should be an information with the security guard that today these 5 employees will visit. Today, this senior manager will visit this campus. Today, this regulatory or auditor will visit this campus. There should be a proper information well in advance. Only the people whose information is there for the entry will be only allowed to enter on that day. And everything would be monitored the moment they enter. Till they leave the organization, everything would be monitored, what they are doing. Are they doing what is expected, or anything is deviating from expected behavior? That should be taken as a serious incident, and proper investigation and further activity should be done. And you should never let anybody, you should never leave your visitors unattended, right? Because that may lead to vulnerability. So these are physical controls or physical control practices. Same way now, logical access control practices. Well, physical attack is a serious risk, right? The person has to come into your campus, right? But then what can happen is a smart hacker may do one thing. He may enter your physically enter to your into your organization, but he will not do any damage. He will only collect information. Okay, what is there? What kind of system they are doing? He may be taking pictures and all and everything, right? After he has taken all these pictures, now he's planning a logical attack. He knows physically he cannot damage anything, but he has captured enough information that he can plan a logical attack. Now, after taking this information, now he's planning that I will try to log into their application, or I will try to intercept their communication, network communication, and will try to steal password and data from the communication. So these are all logical type of attacks, right? We have discussed about this earlier also, like what are the different kind of attacks that can happen. All cyber attacks are logical access attacks. So how to protect against those attacks? You must have user management. Every user in your organization of your application, accounting application for that matter, must be a registered user. And he should only be allowed to use his own user ID. And then there should be a proper authentication check. Username, password, then OTP, biometric, means all. Again, fourth factor, fifth factor, like the context, right? The role, all those things. That whether he is doing what is expected or favorable or not. If he is doing anything beyond that, it should be detected. So first layer of security for logical access is the user management. You must have proper process to assign user IDs, manage password and configure passwords, and regular monitoring should be there on only users are doing what they are expected to do, right? Then the second thing that at logical security you can do is segmented network architecture. As mentioned by Dr. Omkarnath also, you should not have a risk of single point of failure. Let's say you have a single network, all machines are connected to it. If one machine gets compromised, it is connected to the network, all will get compromised. There's a single point of failure. So you should have a segmented network architecture. Let's say you are an organization which has 5 departments. Every department has a different role. So you have a different network for all the departments, because you know that every department has a different security requirement. There is one department of where they have top management and strategic management and all governance and other things. They are the most sensitive people. They are dealing with the most sensitive data, strategies, your intellectual property and various other things, business rules, formulas, and whatnot. So they need highest level of security. It means that their network segment, they should be on a different network segment, which has various advanced security features and facilities. Then the other, let's say there are 5 segments. One is for HR people, one is for finance, one for account, one for manufacturing, and then for governance and top management, there is another network. All these networks should be separate. Then there should be a connecting media which connects these networks, but they cannot directly communicate until unless they pass security check, like firewalls, right? So you can have multiple level of firewall. One firewall at the machine, one at the network, that the internal network, like the segment 1, HR network, one firewall at their network, and then one firewall at the central network link where all networks are connecting. And then you can have sophisticated advanced firewalls and controls at the VIP network, your top management executive network. So this is what is referred as segmented network architecture. This ensures that there is no single point of failure. If somehow an attacker has able to get into HR network, your other networks are safe. And then you can invoke your incident management. They will take care of what damage has been done. They will identify it, they will fix the system, they will study where the vulnerability was, and then they will update the system. But this will not expose your VIP network. So that's the purpose of segmented network architecture. Then content integrity, there should be no way that people are reading your content and they are changing the data during communication. So for that, you can have cryptography, as mentioned by Dr. Omkarnath. Cryptography is where you are converting your data into complex set of values, right? It could be combination of characters, numbers, and random combination that doesn't make any meaning. Doesn't make any sense if you're collecting it from some network media. So it means your data is encrypted, coded. So that is one good practice by which you can ensure your data security. And you might have experienced that many applications nowadays talk about end-to-end encryption. What this means? That means that the moment you press send button, it means the moment you click on the send button, your data that you are sending is encrypted, and it will be in encrypted state till it reaches to the intended receiver, and the receiver will decrypt this at the point of access. Means, like, let's say he's reading it. The moment he is trying to read, only then it would be decrypted. During the rest of the session, wherever the data has been traveling, it will stay in encrypted coded state. So that way it is safe. So encryption, cryptography can be used to ensure content integrity. Okay, so your data should be in encrypted state, whether it is at static mode, whether it is in a movement mode, like you're transferring the data, or whether you are processing the data. In all three states, these are the three states of any piece of data. Either it is at a rest, or it is in processing, or it is in transmission. In all the three states, your data should be encrypted. Let's say you did encryption in two states, like processing and storage. You forget the encryption during transmission. So there is a vulnerability. Let's say you did encryption in processing and transmission. You forget the encryption where the data is kept in a static mode, like in the file or the database. Then again, it is a vulnerability. So this is what it's all about. You need to have a thorough understanding about your system and thorough evaluation of what all vulnerabilities can be there. And then you should have proper controls at all the points. That's how you can protect your system. Firewalls basically monitor what is allowed in and out of the system. So it's basically a filtering mechanism which will study what is coming into the system. That is inbound rules of the firewall. Okay, it will check what is coming into the system, what is allowed, what is not, like a security guard. But here the operations are happening logically because the data is traveling through a network medium. It is coming into your network. So we cannot put security guard there. So we need to have a logical security guard, and that is firewall. So firewall will check who is allowed, who is not allowed. Then he will let only the allowed people go in. Same way when people are coming out or the data is coming out, it will monitor and see what is allowed to go out. Okay, that's what firewall does. Inbound and outbound protection. Then you have virus protection. So if you are installing any software or you are putting a new software or program in your system, it should be scanned and studied and evaluated whether any malicious program code or a segment is not there hidden in the system, right? So virus protection can be done with the help of antivirus softwares, which will keep on monitoring your system whenever there is a new application or new update or new patch comes in. You should review it and test it before you actually implement it. And you may get viruses accidentally also, like you are using a laptop and somebody start chatting with you, like social engineering I mentioned earlier also. So if he's sharing some application, okay, there's no harm to take the application, but scan it and make sure it doesn't have any malicious thing. Only then you should accept the things, right? So a bit of awareness, a bit of understanding of what may go wrong is always going to help you out. Data loss prevention is that you have put all the things in place, all controls are there, but then the people who are in the organization, they have the authority, they have the access, may intentionally leak the data. So that is a serious challenge, right? You can put a lot of security for all outside threats. What about the inside threats? So you need a practice for that also. Here you can put data loss prevention tools or softwares where they will monitor who is doing what within the organization, right? Whenever any piece of data is going out, whether it is through email or through a message or through any communication, right? It would be studied, monitored, right? Whether it is allowed or not. And what data is traveling, it should be recorded, right? So that you can always check if there was an incident of loss of data, how it could have been possible. So you go and check the logs when data movement outside the organization was there, and then start checking the logs, and you may be able to find one point where it has led to the loss of the data or movement of the data outside the network. So that's how DLP software work. And they also use sophisticated techniques like AI and ML, advanced techniques, because physically you cannot do this thing. That's why AI and AI, that is artificial intelligence and machine learning, comes into picture. Intrusion prevention means you should make sure that nobody enters your system without proper authentication and authorization, right? And you should make sure that only acceptable and approved people are allowed to enter the system, right? And that software should keep on monitoring whatever is happening. Only then you can identify exceptional behaviors or fishy trend in the ongoing operations of your organization. Finally, one thing that you should keep on doing is monitoring, strict monitoring, having a dedicated security monitoring station or security operations center. Their job would be to keep on viewing whatever is happening in the organization. And there are rules defined. Whenever there is something exceptional that deviates from acceptable behavior, it has to be highlighted as a red flag. That could be an incident which is leading to some serious loss of data or loss to the information system. So this is referred as security incident and event management, or you can have a process for that. You can have a software for that, which will help you in doing this, a kind of a dashboard where you're monitoring all the network zones. There are 5 network zones, what traffic is moving from one network to another, and all those things, a kind of a dashboard where you can monitor. If there is an exception, it would be highlighted immediately, and immediately you can respond. That's what this SIEM, security incident event management concept is all about when we talk about logical security, right? So this was the thing. You need to protect your system. You need 2 perspectives, physical security and logical security. You can handle all physical threats by physical security controls, and all the cyber attacks and all the logical attacks that can happen, you can address those with the help of logical security controls. And these are some of the practices which are followed for logical security controls. Now, it's very important to have a security mindset. We talked about, okay, there are threats, there are vulnerabilities. We did risk assessment, risk management, we defined controls. Now we may feel that, oh, our system is safe. No, we cannot sit silent, right? A proactive approach, a vigilant approach is must, even if you have implemented the system, security system and controls. So you should not trust anything. There is no silver bullet to security. It's implementing latest practices, better practices, and keep monitoring regularly whatever you have done, right? Whether your security practices are effective or not. Then sensitive data should be encrypted, as I mentioned, and you should keep on doing different types of encryption. As mentioned by Dr. Onkar Nath sir in previous session, there are different algorithm strategies, right? DES, I think he mentioned DES, then other algorithms also. And there has been a lot of changes over a period of time. There has been a lot of advancements when we talk about SSL, where TLS and other security algorithms which are there, hashing algorithms, there has been regular updations. So we should always try to keep our security or encryption algorithms latest, up to mark, and we should try to use mix of all those things, because some of the things are in public space. Everybody knows what are the security practices happening. So it's all about how effectively you can deceive the hacker. So you should try to create element of confusion and diffusion. More element of confusion, diffusion, more mixing of latest security practices, the stronger your system is, right? So that's what it's all about. Don't trust anything. Try to keep mixing your security practices with latest techniques available. That's the way to approach. So that's what security mindset is. You know that encryption can be broken, and he mentioned our quantum cryptography, right? So quantum computing. And so this is what we should be aware of, what is happening around us in the outside world, how hackers are thinking. We need to have that proactive mindset that this may happen, so we should be ready for such attack. Then regular security awareness programs and training should be there. And mock drills of attacks should be tried regular intervals, maybe say once in 6 months, right? It totally depends on the kind of system you have, kind of organization you have. Like you're trying to create an attack, right? Your own team. You can say that, okay, in other ways, you can hire an ethical hacker and you can ask him, okay, try to attack the system, damage the system, try all the hacking techniques that hackers do or follow, and let's see whether our system is safe or not, right? So there can be mixed practices which you can try, and you can keep on testing your system on a regular basis that whether we are good enough to safeguard our system or not. So that's what security mindset is all about. We cannot just sit silent. Okay, I have implemented controls, now my system is safe. No. You have to be vigilant, and you need to have standard operating procedures, standard practices that should be followed after every regular interval of time, so that you can have an assurance about whether your system is effective or not. Now coming to essential practices to ensure cyber security for accounting firms. So let's be more precise now. You should know your threats. What kind of threats are there? Now, let me tell you one thing. You can only understand what kind of threat is there if you know what valuable asset you have. I think it's a common sense. You will always have an attack or a breach of security where there is something valuable for the hacker or attacker, right? So you know that you are having an accounting system. There are sensitive data and transactional data stored in a database. So you know where the valuables are. So the threat is around that valuable asset only. It could be in terms of physical threat, logical threat, or cyber threat, right? Kind of different practices. So just try to define that threat landscape around your sensitive assets. So that's the first thing. Second, train your staff. Your staff members should be aware, because the weakest link in any information system is the human factor, the person, right? If he's not aware what can happen, what wrong can happen, how security attacks can happen, so your system is highly vulnerable. Why? Doesn't matter how much control security you have applied. If you are not training your staff, hacker has a very easy way of breaking the system. He will exploit the person or human factor and will gain access to your system, though you have advanced security controls. So the weakest link is the human factor, people who are working on the system. And the second, the weakest link is the endpoint device, right? Through which a person gain access to the system or network. So these are two highly sensitive points in your organization system from where attack mostly happens. One is the person element, second is the endpoint device. The servers are, or the databases are all being protected by all advanced controls. The only weakness which can be exploited is the endpoint device, because that's the point from where you get entry to the system and the person who is entering. These are the two things which can be broken easily. Rest, you can put advanced controls, and it may take a lot of effort and investment to break your firewall or your email systems or your databases. So easy way out is through people element and the endpoint device. So you must know your threats, first thing. Second, you should train your staff members. They should be aware of what to do, how to do, so that your human element is not a weak element in your organization. Then know your regulation. You should know all the regulation standards, compliances, because if you're not following those practices, this will lead to vulnerabilities. And this will have serious consequences. You may have to face serious penalties, or your work permit could be stopped or cancelled. So these are serious risks for your organization. So you should know your regulations, your compliance requirements, and accordingly you should put security. Next is design and approval and validation system. You should have people like maker checker kind of a concept. If one person is making something or initiating a transaction, it should not be executed directly. There should be somebody independent of that person to verify and approve it. Only then it would be made permanent or committed, right? So that kind of procedure, validation system should be there for all the activities, all the transactions in the information system or your application system, like the accounting application. The next step is establish security requirements. What kind of security? Like this is sensitive activity. It should only be accessible to manager, right? It means it's a sensitive role activity. So it needs high level of privileges. Okay, this is a very simple activity, and it is required for just providing some customer service. Okay, so your teller, like cashier, teller, or maybe the operator should have privilege or access to this information to give service to the customer. So based on need to know, need to do thing, you should provide access to the users. And that's how you should establish security requirements, like how much security is required for which asset, for which activity, for which operation. Accordingly, you should design your system, right? And finally, choose the right accounting system. Means you know that you need a software for your operations. You know what operation you want to do, but then you should also understand what your security requirements are there, and whether that accounting system provides you that application provides you that security or not. And does that accounting application meets your regulations, compliance requirement or not? If you're not using or choosing the right accounting system, that is perhaps a big vulnerability, right? So this is some of the practices that you can follow, right, to ensure that you have the right system and right practices to ensure and security and safeguard your critical assets. Now, quickly, a bit of activity, which I was talking about when I was mentioning this security risk management, and we were saying risk assessment, how we can assess or evaluate a risk. So let's have a quick activity. It's basically a simple calculation. Let's say we have identified 3 risks. Application crash is a risk, unauthorized access is a risk, then ransomware attack is a risk. Okay. So these are the 3 risks that we have identified. There can be many more. So first, you have to identify all the risks. Now, what next you can do is you have to calculate probability of occurrence. What are the chances of occurring this kind of risk, right? Occurrence of this risk. Now, this is quite subjective, right? How frequently this application crash may happen. Now, for this, you need to have expert people around you. Let's say you call the people who are using the system for quite a long time now. You call them and you have input from them. And you can have a scale for reference. Let's say they are saying this application crash happened very often. Very, very often it happens. And the frequency is very high. Okay, if it is very high, you can give this value from 8.1 to 10 on the scale of 0 to 10. And you can take this value from different people. Let's say there are 5 experts. One has given 8.4 based on his judgment. One has given 8.7, maybe 9.2. And you just take an average of it and then put it in this entry, probability of occurrence. Let's say the average comes out to be 5. Application crash is a risk. We have called 5 experts. They have given their values from this scale based on their expert judgment and experience. Now, the value 5 is for probability of occurrence. And let's say if application crash happens, what is the impact? One is how much chances are there for that application crash, and the other is impact of crash. Now, let's say again, 5 people have given their ratings. One feels very high, one feels high, another feel very high. So they will give their values and take their values and calculate the average. The average comes out to be, say, 9. So now probability of occurrence is 5, impact of this risk application crash is 9. Now, to calculate the overall impact, we have to do this. That is 5 into 9, that is 45. Why we are doing this? Let me give you clarity. Let's say there is a risk and there's a high probability of occurrence of that risk. But if that risk happens, there is no serious damage. Okay. For example, let's say we are having a frequent power failure. Power failure is a risk, right? And there is a frequent power failure. So we can say that probability of occurrence is 10. If power failure happens, what is the impact of that? So we know that the probability of occurrence is very high, but the impact is very less. Why? Because we are not losing the data. Our data is not getting hacked. We have backup generators which will be activated, and then we'll resume our operations. So there will be a loss of availability maybe, or downtime for a very few seconds or a minute, right? And that may have some impact. I'm not saying zero impact. It will have some impact, but it is not that high, or maybe some other kind of risk is there. So the point is, a risk may have high probability and low impact, or low probability and very high impact. Okay. So it means that we cannot calculate overall magnitude. We cannot assess a risk or overall magnitude of a risk without considering these two factors together. You have to consider both the factors. You cannot calculate overall assessment or evaluation based on only one factor, that is impact. So you have to cover probability of occurrence also. Same way, let's say for this unauthorized access, you did the calculation from 5, 6 experts or 10 experts, and you get a value 64. Then for ransomware attack, you take the inputs and the value comes 81. Now this clearly shows the most critical risk is the ransomware, right? And we should take this risk more critically, right? It is very material, highly sensitive. So what we should do is we should have strong control practices to stop ransomware attack. Now, how we can do that? You know that ransomware attack is an attack where software program would enter in your system and it will damage your system. It will encrypt all the data. Now, how this software can enter? It can enter through physical mode or logical mode. Now, in logical mode, through application or through network, right? So, okay, so 2-3 things are there, the entry points. Okay, you make sure that and there is fourth entry point also. The fourth entry point is the internal person, internal user, employee, right? Employee collusion. Okay, so fourth factor is also there through which ransomware can enter. Okay, so means put control for all those 4 things and have a regular monitoring of these controls. That's how you can apply proper control practice for a sensitive risk. So this is what we can do in risk evaluation, risk assessment, and how this is how you can do risk assessment and can define appropriate control for a high priority risk. Okay, I hope you got a clarity now. Now, security by design, I mentioned earlier also when I was introducing the topic that we cannot think of security as a reactive activity, right? When you're building a system, you are designing a system, or you are acquiring a software app, say an accounting application you are acquiring. Either you can build it or you can outsource its development, or you can acquire it. These are the only 3 things by which you will get the system. Either you will build in-house, or you will outsource that somebody else should build your accounting system, or you will acquire already built system, or you are taking a cloud-based service, SaaS service like QuickBooks or many other. There are so many solutions available. So it means that whatever is your approach, security should be a primary requirement, not a reactive approach. Okay, let's set the system, install the system, start using the system, then we'll think of security. No, that is stupidity. That is a wrong strategy. Okay, so let's say you are building the system in-house. So you should put all security requirement while you are building the system application. Let's say you have outsourced the requirement. Okay, we are outsourcing our accounting software development to be done by somebody else, XYZ software company. Okay, so when the development is happening, your people or designated people like auditor or expert would be part of this process, will regularly monitor whether the system which has been developed for you is meeting your all security requirements or not, which you have already done. If you recall, I mentioned you established security requirement, right? So your all security requirements should be considered while development of the software. Let's say last thing is you are not going for development. You are all picking up already developed software, QuickBooks or a cloud-based service which is already developed. Okay, in that case, you need to understand how this works. So, and you know the security requirement. So you should make sure that all authorization, authentication, and everything is as per your requirement. And there is service level agreement, because when the things are on cloud, you are dependent on somebody else if it is a public cloud. But if it is a private cloud, you know that you have the access to the infrastructure, your team controls the hardware, so you can do better operation monitoring and all. But if it is on public cloud, like you are taking service of a cloud service provider, say QuickBooks and all, so they have their own infrastructure, they have their dedicated infrastructure, they are providing you service on a SaaS mode, software as a service through cloud. Now, what you need is, you need an expert team who will keep on monitoring this application. Operations are other thing. You will have some people who will expert, or maybe your security representatives will keep on monitoring whether you are getting adequate services in an adequate way, meeting the requirements of your performance, security, and regularly you are auditing the system, regularly you are monitoring the logs, incidents and errors that are happening, regularly you are taking backups, and you're making sure that the service provider has an adequate service level agreement where he's ensuring security, encryption, and everything. And you know that when you're taking service through an internet-based platform, you know how to check it. Basically, when you're getting a service, there are various security provisions. Like the website should be hosted on a HTTPS mode. And then if it is HTTPS, it should be latest security protocol. And it's not hard to evaluate. If you have a person in charge for security operations, you can do it easily. Go to the browser, click that lock, and you will see the digital certificate. Go into the digital certificate, you can see which security protocol algorithm is used for encryption, whether it is meeting our security requirement policy or not. So things are not complicated. The only thing is we should be aware of it, and we should regularly monitor and check whether it is working effectively or not, and it is configured correctly or not. So security by design means we'll take into consideration the security aspect, that is physical and logical, right from the inception of the system. We'll be focused about selection of location for hosting our infrastructure and technological facilities. Like, we'll be aware that we should keep a data center in a secure location, right? It should have adequate security controls. What do you mean by adequate security controls? Means we must identify the security requirement, and accordingly, security control should be applied. For example, within our infrastructure, IT infrastructure, there are different segments. One is data center. Now, that's an area of high security requirement. So you must have all physical and logical advanced security controls for data center. Second, medium security requirement like your employee working area. So there you can have biometric to ensure that you are actually verifying and recording every individual employee's operations and their verification. So that needs medium security, little less as compared to the data center. So accordingly, you will apply security controls, physical and logical. Lastly, the last area segment is your low security requirement area, like public area or reception. There you will put up CCTV camera and all other practices which are required, right? Which are a minimum requirement for ensuring security, logging of visitors and all. But that doesn't need advanced security, which is required at data center level. So this is what security by design means, based on the exact requirement of the segment of your organization system, like data center or the application or employee work area. Accordingly, you will put security controls. Okay, so you will define security controls and protection levels for each layer based on their requirements. Then you must have proper considerations for other requirements, like you must have proper power backup, you must have proper water supply, fire station services, police or local law enforcement services, so that in a case if a situation arises, you can quickly contact them and take those services. Let's say there is a fire incident, or maybe there is a a flood scenario, or maybe there's a kind of a scenario, let's say there is a security breach by some insider person and you're identified. Now you want to take up legal action, and you want to file a FIR or a criminal report. So you must be able to access that local law enforcement facilities and services. So these are other secondary requirements that should be kept in mind when you're designing your system. Then other external services, as I mentioned about medical and fire services. And again, if you're talking about a data center visibility, your physical facility should be designed in a way that it doesn't give exposure to sensitive operations and activities from the outside. Okay. Many times you might have observed that nowadays people have a trend that, okay, we should have transparent glass-based offices and all. Okay, great. It looks great, fancy. But let me tell you one thing, if you have smart and advanced binoculars, you can track the movement of people in and outside of the organization, in the offices. That is a critical information, isn't it? So this position of doors and windows and the infrastructure, the material that you are using on doors and windows, again, is an element of security, okay? So security by design is a perspective mindset that it's not a reactive activity, it's a proactive activity. And it should be taken up during the inception of the system, or when you're building the system or setting up a system. Now, the other aspect, use of AI and ML for cyber security. Now, we all are aware that the systems are getting complex, complicated, advanced. We need more capabilities, more computing. We need more infrastructure to store the data. We need cloud-based services, right? We are dealing with huge amount of data. Do you think you can monitor security manually in these kind of circumstances? No, it's not possible. Okay, let's say you want to monitor whether somebody is doing wrong activity or not. Let's understand the scale. You have an organization with a volume of 100 plus staff. 1 million plus transactions are happening every day through the system. Do you think manually you can scan and manage all these things, monitor every transaction? No, it's not possible. So what you need is an intelligent capability in the machine so that it can monitor and give you all the things that you are looking for. And that's where AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning, comes into picture. Some of the application area could be cyber threat identification. If somebody is trying to enter into the system, physically, how much traffic you will monitor? So you want an AI ML program on top of your monitoring system. You have a monitoring system, dashboard and all. But do you think physically you can monitor every single transaction? No. So in that platform, you want an AI ML program, which will keep on scanning automatically. The moment in real time, the transaction is happening, it is scanning, monitoring, whether it is a fraudulent transaction or not. The moment there is a incident or a transaction which deviates from accepted behavior, it will issue a notification, trigger, red flag. Immediately, the person concerned gets the red flag. Let's say a moment, say 1 second ago, the transaction is initiated. Within a second, you got the notification. Immediately, you raised a trigger that this transaction should be put in an emergency mode. Emergency mode means it would not be processed immediately. It would be passed on to an advanced check and verification channel. Okay. In the meantime, you can go and check who's the source. Who you can you can study that particular transaction till the time it is doing advanced verification and validation of that transaction. And you can study in real time whether we should allow this transaction or not. And there is AI and ML program, which again is scanning all the other transactions and giving you regular flags. Okay. So AI ML can really add a lot of value in your monitoring of all the operations in your organization, whether any possibility of cyber threat in the flow of application is happening or not. Okay. So the point is cyber threat identification in a big system where there is a huge volume of transactions happening can only be handled smartly if we have an AI and ML program who is monitoring and scanning every single transaction. Okay. Same way, AI-based antivirus software. Now we know that when we are dealing with a large-scale IT infrastructure, there are so many activities happening. So means our antivirus should be advanced and smart, because every now and then new kind of viruses are coming. So we need an intelligent self-adjusting and smart kind of antivirus, which can study the exceptional behavior of software programs and can easily give you notification. Okay, this looks like a fishy operation, and this program doesn't match with our information security policies. So this looks like a malicious program or activity. So AI means artificial intelligence based software programs and antiviruses would be more effective as compared to traditional antivirus softwares. Same way, user behavior modeling. We know that we have 100+ staff in our organization. So we have defined roles for those people, and we are monitoring their behavior from last, say, 3, 4, 5 years. So we have all the data. Now this data can be put into a AI ML program, a software. It will learn from this behavior. Okay, this is the acceptable behavior of all the people. Now this AI program will be installed in the system. Now, whenever there is a behavior activity by any employee, this program is scanning, monitoring, and checking whether it is meeting to accepted behavior or not. If it is deviating, it's an outlier. It's an exception. It should be investigated. And immediately it should be stopped for execution. Let it go through a advanced verification validation. Only then it would be allowed. Then fighting AI threat. Now, I told you AI can be used for protecting the system. Same way, AI can be used to attack the system also. We can have advanced intelligent attacks also. So for that, again, we need to use similar kind of practices, like denial of service attack. Now, denial of service attack, as I mentioned earlier, was to disrupt your ongoing services and operations. Now, how we can protect our system? And there can be advanced, sophisticated denial of service attack. Normally, if I have to launch a denial of service attack, what I'll do? Let's say you have a website, abcd.com. Now, I want to shut down your operation. What I'll do is I'll keep on sending useless requests to your website. You know that how a website works. A user sends a request to the website. request is processed and the requested data is transferred to the client. This is how a website works. Request response. I know this is a server. Server has a capacity, like it can handle 1 million requests at a time, not more than that. There will be a threshold, 1 million, say 1,000, 10,000, 1 million, 1 billion. It depends on the server and the website. Okay. Now let's say I have done research and I've got to know that threshold, say 1 million. Okay. I know I have one machine. If I am trying hard, doing multiple programming and all, say 10 nodes, virtual nodes I've created, and I'm sending, at max, I can send 10 attacks, 10 requests at a time. So what I'll do, I'll create a bot network. Bot network means I'll hack various machines. Like there are many people, I'm a hacker, I've hacked various people's machines. He may be my friend or maybe any random person who is using internet. He doesn't have security. So I'll keep on hacking those machines. I'm not going to damage those machines. I'm just hacking them to make my own network of machines. Right? Now, why I'm doing this? I just want to make a bot network which is in my control. Now I don't have only one machine. I have 1,000 machines and all are hacked by me. So now those 1,000 machines are my agents, nodes. Now I have to launch 1 million requests at the same time. What I'll do is, now I control all those 1,000 machines. I'll execute the same program on 1,000 machines at the same time. The moment I hit here, there'll be a sudden rush, 1,000 requests or million requests at the same time at the server. And server capacity would be reached and the server will stop responding. It will be crashed. Now, here what I'm doing is I'm using AI and hacking techniques to create advanced threat, distributed denial of service attack, right? Advanced intelligent attack which cannot be directly detected. So it means if such kind of attacks are there, we need more sophisticated techniques to detect those attacks so that those requests doesn't go into the server. They should be blocked right at the firewall. Only then we can protect our server, because our server has a threshold. So we'll not let that request to go to the server, right? So that the threshold will never be met. So this is how fighting AI threats can be there using, again, AI only. Next, and the last one is email monitoring, another application where we can use AI ML. Like you can have a simple example like spamming and anti-spamming or phishing mails. You can have an AI ML program which will automatically detect whether this mail is a spam or a phishing mail. So you don't have to really put too much stress. It will do first level of check for you. Automatically, it will discard those mails and will not let those mails to be reflected in your primary segment within the inbox. Right? So this is email monitoring, and you can have AI ML based tools, programs, which will give you automatic filtering of emails. So these are some of the use cases, examples, applications of AI ML for cybersecurity. And you can take a cue from this and you can think on whether if you have such requirements, then you can use them in your accounting applications. Finally, if we do everything, still there is an incident, then the last resort is cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is a contract between the insurer and a company, right? To protect against any losses due to network-based event or cyber threat. So you will talk to a company and you will have a contract with them. They will insure, means insurance company, they will insure any loss that may happen due to cyber threat to your critical assets or your application. Cyber insurance covers expenses and legal costs associated with cyber breaches. So let's say there is a cyber attack, data breach attack, your data has been stolen, right? By any kind of technique, maybe database breach is there, or maybe ransomware is there, or maybe some other kind of attack where they have entered your system and they have taken a copy of your data, right? So your cyber insurance will cover the expenses, the loss you have incurred, and the legal cost. Like let's say this breach is there, and you have the stakeholders and the parties who have got affected with this breach, they have put a legal case on you, right? So all those legal expenses and other things and all other costs related to the proceedings till you get this insurance claim, all would be covered in the insurance, right? And they will be covering cyber breaches like hacking of system, data theft, and loss of important information of the organization. So this is a very important aspect, and you should be aware of it. And every country will have a lot of organization. If you talk about India, there are companies like SDFC Ergo, you have IFCO Tokyo, whatnot. There are so many insurance companies. You can go and explore their websites, and you can go and check their insurance plans offering they are giving. Most of them give you coverage of minimum 1 lakh to 1 crore, and it depends on the kind of plans they are offering, and accordingly the cost of premium will be there, right? So you should be aware of this thing, that there should be, if you are dealing with very sensitive thing, of course you should have security controls, but there is a limitation, right? You will have a budget for your security. You cannot invest more than that. So to cover any risk element that is left, you should have cyber insurance, so that if after putting all controls, there's an incident and you lose the data, so there should be something to fix that, right? There should be some alternative available, right? So cyber insurance is a solution to that thing. So that's it from my side. I think I've covered all the topics that were part of the agenda. So I hope this would have given you a lot of insights. I'm open for any queries, doubts you have. Over to you, Sampoon.
Thank you, sir. Actually, there is one question.
Yeah.
The equation that threat plus vulnerability equals risk, whether this equation have any other aspect that may creep in that can trespass the upset the whole equilibrium. If so, then what are the all steps of mitigation that can be thought of to protect our systems from cyber attacks?
Okay. Coming to that equation, let me tell you one thing. The purpose of that equation is to facilitate risk assessment. Okay. Please try to understand what is the purpose of that equation. The purpose of that equation is to help us in doing risk assessment. We want to assess the risk, right? First of all, activity is identify risk. We should be able to identify the risk, right? Now, how we can identify risk? We can only identify the risk if we know what are the weaknesses are in our system and what are the possible attempts, attacks, threats which may exploit those weaknesses, right? So first step in risk assessment is to identify risk and threats. Once we have done that, right? Once we have done that, then we can go on advanced calculation measurement and we can rank those risks. Now, coming to that equation, threat plus vulnerability leads to risk. The only sole purpose of this statement is to facilitate in identification of risks, right? So don't go beyond that, because then there can be, if you take into consideration other factors, okay, let's say how it can facilitate us in controlling the security risk and all, that is beyond that scope. Our only scope in that equation is to facilitate us in identifying the risk. I hope you have understood. If beyond that there is any other concern, for that there are other practices. First is risk identification, then you have risk assessment, and then you have controls. So for every activity, there is a purpose behind it. So that equation is just to facilitate how we can identify this. We can identify risk based on threats and vulnerabilities. I hope this addresses the question. Any other question, Sampoon?
Not right now, sir. That will give me the question.
Okay. Thank you, Sampoon. I think it's really a privilege and an honor to be part of this panel alongside Dr. Onkar Nath. And appreciation and credit goes to the parties involved, ICAI and SAFA. They are taking the right initiatives. And thank you all the stakeholders, parties who are connected and watching this session. I hope you gain some important insights which will help you in your careers, in your practices. And feel free to interact. I think our email IDs would be available to you. In any case, if you have further queries and doubts, you can reach to us through Sampoon. Over to you.
Thank you, Vinay sir. So here we have come to the end of this enriching session on IT security for professional accountants, and I would like to extend my sincerest thanks to CA Dr. Debashish Mitra ji, President ICAI, CA Aniket Sunil Talati ji, Vice President ICAI, Mr. HM Vinayak Bandra ji, President SAFA, and CA Nihar N. Jambusaria ji, Vice President SAFA, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda ji, Chairman Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, and Dayanivas Sharma ji, Vice Chairman Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, and our eminent speakers, Dr. Omkar Nath ji and Dr. Vinay Kumar Saini ji. It has been an immense pleasure, and I would like to thank you all for your efforts and time to come on the meeting and providing the knowledge light to everyone on the topic and their ideas and elegance of explanation. I need to express my deepest sense of appreciation. I also extend my thanks to all the members who have joined their enormous cooperation to join the event. Last but not the least, the staff who and all the other way has made this session possible. We will keep on organizing more sessions like this every Friday. So you are requested to stay in touch and be updated for the same. With this, we close today's session. Thank you, Vinay sir.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you all. Thank you all. Take care. Stay safe. Stay secure.